Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. After a brief day off on Monday, we are back, and we are doing actually buy, sell, hold today. The premium message board members at boards@irishbreakdown.com brought it this week. Another fully loaded slate of awesome questions. Now, friendly reminder, this is something that we just do for premium message board members. So we get so many great submissions in, we just don't have time to, if you just put it into the normal chat, you're going to have to wait to do that stuff until Friday in the Friday free-for-all mailbag. But, Brian, we have a lot of awesome submissions in queue for today. I'm excited to dive into this, man.
Yeah, if you missed the buy, sell, hold submission period, you can always give a super chat. But otherwise, these are going to be the submissions from the post on the message board. And we did have a lot of good ones today, Trev. We've got mostly Notre Dame football. I think there's a couple recruiting, and then one about World War II air tanks, which we will get into as well. So obviously, as always, Salty Virginia Peanuts, when he starts the thread, he gets to go first because he put the thread up. So Salty has the first question that we will get into for today's buy, sell, hold.
Keon Keeley returns to Notre Dame as a sentimental favorite for many fans familiar with his original commitment and subsequent decommitment. He decommitted the, quote, right way, honestly, and without burning bridges. Many felt he was making a mistake, and ultimately he agreed. Partridge is precisely the right person to put Keeley on track to maximizing his tremendous potential.
Yeah, I buy all that. I buy the fact that he did it the right way. I don't love decommitments, but Keon never lied to Notre Dame. He was very upfront with Notre Dame. He didn't start taking visits until he committed, because that's at the time what Notre Dame's rule was. They had if you can't be committed to us and take visits. So he decommitted. And I've always appreciated that. I didn't like it. I thought it was the wrong decision, but I thought, Trev, look, sometimes I don't mind that you make the wrong decision. What I mind is when you don't do whatever decision you make. There's a right and a wrong way to do things sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time. Sometimes I tell my wife, like, babe, look, there's no right or wrong answer to the potential things you may want to do Saturday night. You just got to pick one. You know what I mean? Just the only wrong answer is not to pick one. But in some cases, something like this, it is there is a right or a wrong way to do it. You're going to be upfront and honest and be a man, or you're going to lie about it. And, and we saw a kid in that class do exactly that. And Keon didn't do that. That's why I think there was a willingness to bring him back that maybe there might not be for other kids who decommitted from Notre Dame. So no, I buy all that. And I do think Charlie Partridge is someone who has the track record of saying, hey, look, if Keon puts in the work, he's going to get the coaching needed to thrive.
Yeah, agreed. The only one that I hesitate with is Charlie Partridge, but to Brian's point, I think his track record speaks for itself. And so I'm going to buy this as well, Salty. It's a good way to get us kicked off, man. From D Troll Hunter, buy, sell, hold. Salted peanuts, salted cashews, and pistachios, shelled or unshelled. Didn't take long to get into the food questions today. I mean, I'm going to buy pistachios. I love pistachios. I think they're great. And then I'll probably hold cashews and then sell salted peanuts, I suppose.
First of all, it depends on where I'm at. If I'm at a baseball game, there's nothing I want more than salted peanuts. I mean, that's just kind of what I grew up doing at baseball games. I don't know that I'd be like rocking pistachios, at a baseball game. But if it's like my preferred nut of choice at my house, pistachios I would buy, hold salted peanuts, and I would sell salted cashews. That would be my preference. And I'm weird. I don't like unshelled pistachios. Part of it is the work that goes into getting it. It's kind of part of the accomplishment of eating those things is kind of part of it. So that would be mine. I like cashews. I'll have a couple. I'm not as big of a fan of cashews as I am the other two.
Buy, sell, hold. The number one position group for you in concern based on depth at Notre Dame is quarterback.
For 2026, I'd buy that. Yeah, I think that's a very fair thing to say, Trev. We've talked about like tight end depth being an issue. Offensive line depth is not an issue. Receiver depth, definitely not an issue. Defensive line depth, not an issue. Linebacker depth, not an issue. Cornerback, safety. Kicker's not even a depth issue anymore. And look, I like the talent at quarterback. It's just you've got a redshirt freshman and 2 true freshmen as the depth behind CJ Carr. That's a concern. And this is why we said, it might be wise to go get a veteran in the portal. It just was going to be hard to get a veteran in the portal that was going to be good enough to do the job talent-wise should his number be called. And that was kind of the problem.
Yeah, quarterback would be a buy for me as well. How about this one? Ohio State is returning the top wide receiver room in the country.
Wow, that's a good one. I'm going to sell that. I think Ohio State is clearly returning the best wide receiver in college football. I'll just say this. Notre Dame has more proven productive wide receivers on their roster than Ohio State does, in my opinion. I mean, Brandon Ennis is their second best returning pass catcher this year that played at the Power 4 level last year. He had 36 catches for 271 yards last year. His receiving numbers were less impressive than Aeneas Williams' rushing numbers. Seriously. Aeneas Williams last year rushed for more. Actually, let me go look at what was Aeneas's numbers. He certainly had more yards per attempt. But last year, Aeneas Williams had 224 rushing yards on 24 carries. Brandon Ennis had 271 yards receiving on 36 carries in 14 games. He averaged 7.5 yards per catch. Aeneas Williams averaged 9.3 yards per carry last season as Notre Dame's third-string running back. So from a proven production standpoint, I can't go there. Just like I can't go with Notre Dame's. I mean, if we want to talk about potential, I could make a case for Notre Dame's receiving core, but it's about potential. I look at some teams I think about. I think of Texas's wide receiver core is in the conversation, Trev. You have Cam Coleman, who's a proven receiver. You have Ryan Wingo coming back. You've got Emmett Mosley coming back. I think that's a very talented receiving core. Oregon has a receiving core that I think is going to be a very good football team this year, a very good unit this year if they can stay healthy. You've got Evan Stewart coming back, who 2 years ago had 48 catches for 600 yards. You've got, obviously, DeCorian Moore coming off of his freshman season where he had 34 catches and almost 500 yards. Jeremiah McClellan comes back after having almost 600 yards receiving. I think Gary Bryant comes back this year. So that's a unit that's the conversation, Trev, for me. I do think Notre Dame's group is in the conversation, but I can't put them at the top because, again, it's the proven production. They've got 2 proven players, but neither of those players are proven to be as dominant as like a Jeremiah Smith is, for example. And then after those 2, there's a lot of question marks. And so I think that's a lot of it. I mean, Ohio State did get a portal guy that was a pretty good football player last year. Has very good speed. But again, the proven track record to me is the thing that makes me want to say no to Ohio State. They're in the conversation for the most talented room in the country, as is Notre Dame, as is Oregon, as is Texas. I'm trying to think of a couple more, Trev. I like LSU's receiving core, but I'm not sounding. Oh, here's a receiving core that I think you could make a case as the best coming back, and that's Miami.
Yeah,
with Cooper Barcotti and Malachi Toney. I mean, those are 2 of the best receivers in the country coming back next year. They're both now going to be at Duke. Barcotti had 1,000 yards last year. Did Malachi Toney get to 1,000 last year, Trevor?
Not in the regular season. Or I don't think he did in the regular season, but I think he did in the postseason.
Yeah, because he had 1,211 and he had 200 in the last 2 games. So yeah, you take those away, that's 203 plus he had 38. He was at 970 in the regular season. And that was as a true freshman. And he had 84 some catches, 970 yards as a true freshman last year. They also got a couple proven players out of the portal, guys that have performed. They got the kid Cam Vaughn from West Virginia.
Vandrevius Jacobs from South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think is going to be a good pickup for them.
Exactly. So I think those are some of the reasons why I think you could make a case, and I probably would, just off the top of my head without doing the research, I would probably argue that Miami has the best receiving core in the country coming back next year.
Yeah, for your submission, Detroit, I'm going to sell this one as well. They're 100% in the conversation because Jeremiah Smith, I think, carries a pretty heavy weight to that because I think he is hands down the best receiver returning in the country. But I view this similar to when I did the comparison of running back room rankings on Notre Dame's schedule. And I said that Miami's room as a whole was better than what BYU brought back. Now, I would take LJ Martin over both of Mark Fletcher and Shamar Brown, but them together gives Miami the strongest running back room. It's kind of how I view this conversation with Ohio State. So it'll be a sell for me too.
Yeah, agree. What would your response be to my case for Miami, Trev? Again, we'll have to study it and go through. Again, I think the second unit that I would say has a chance to be in that conversation would be Auburn, or would be Texas.
Yeah,
I think last year, I thought Texas's receiver room was overrated. If you remember, I said it's a little overrated coming in the season, and I think that proved to be true. They asked too much of Ryan Wingo in year one. Emmett Mosley was injured all year. Now you add Cam Coleman to it. Now Wingo goes into year 3. Now Emmett Mosley's going into year 2 in the system. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think that's going to be a really, really talented room as well. So I think just off proven production plus talent, that would probably be my 1-2. I could be forgetting someone, but that's where I would start with this list. And then after that, it's the Notre Dames, it's the Ohio States, it's the Oregons, it's the LSUs. There's some groups that are very talented, but they have a little bit more to prove than maybe those two groups do.
Yeah, Miami would be my number one right now. I mean, top 4 to 5 without an order outside of Miami. At the top, I'd also include Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. And orders 2 through 5 could be up for debate. So that's where I'm at with that one for sure. Another one from Detroit Hunter. The recent court cases against Joey Aguilar and Diego Pavia plus friends gives you some hope for college football stability.
I'm going to sell that because I'll see those cases and then I'll argue that those cases are balanced out by cases like we saw from Trinidad Chambliss. So I think you're basically punishing. Tennessee's being punished while Ole Miss is being rewarded. Why? Because they got different judges.
Yeah.
That's literally the reasoning. Now, I know their cases are different. Joey Aguilar's has to do with JUCO. Diego Pavia's has to do with JUCO, whereas Trinidad Chambliss's has to do with whether or not they actually had a redshirt season in 2022. So I think that, if anything, the lack of consistency doesn't create stability. Because if you're going to not allow Joey Aguilar to play a 6th year, and honestly, I'm okay with that, and you're not going to give Diego Pavia, a 7th year, and I'm okay with that, then why does Trinidad Chambliss get a 6th year? I would actually think the JUCO kids' arguments are better than Trinidad Chambliss's argument. So he didn't play in 2022 because he wasn't good enough to play in 2022. They had better guys in front of him. Now they're just trying to retroactively create something to allow him to play another year. Where at least with Aguilar and Pavia, they had a legitimate, look, I went to a junior college. That's not part of the NCAA. I think that's a bad argument. But I still would say none of them should be eligible to play next year. So I think that instability is created by that there's just now different rules for different situations that create an unfair situation for one team, whereas another one gets dinged because one judge does the right thing, ruling these guys ineligible. Another judge does the wrong thing, then asks for the kid to autograph a football afterwards. And that's not stability to me.
No, definitely not. The judges are my root cause for selling this one as well. And buy, sell, hold, the SEC caves to the guaranteed bids demanded by the Big Ten after only getting 3 teams in the playoffs this season.
Oh, sell. Yeah, sell. Number one, I don't know that Greg Sankey's that short-sighted. I don't. I also think that the SEC is going to be even better than it was last year. So I'll be very surprised if it has 3 bids. Very surprised. I mean, look, Trev, we've kind of talked about it. Obviously, we both think Georgia's a team that's going to be in the playoff again. We think Texas is going to be in the playoff again. I think Alabama has a shot to be in the playoff again. LSU is going to be a better football team this year. I think Tennessee is going to be a better football team this year. I think Texas A&M is once again going to be in the conversation for a playoff bid. I think Auburn's going to be a much improved football team. Part of that could be, hey, they're going to beat each other up. I'll be shocked if there's a world in which we have fewer than 4 SEC teams. And if the SEC only gets 3 in, it'll be a scenario where nobody gets more than 3. Like, I could see a world, Trev, where the SEC gets 3, the Big Ten gets 3. You've got Notre Dame. You have 2 from the ACC, obviously 1 group of 5, and then 2 from the Big 12. I could see a scenario where, and if that's the case, then the SEC is not going to give into the Big Ten demands. Where they might, to his point, is if there's like 3 SEC and then like 6 Big Ten teams, then you might see them say, okay, we're willing to talk, but I'll be shocked if there's more than 3 or 4 Big Ten teams in the playoffs this year. I think the Big Ten is just going to be like it has been. There's going to be 3 teams, maybe 4, but probably 3 teams that are just way better than everybody else. I think it's another year where Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon are all the creme de la creme of the Big Ten. Maybe USC makes a push. I don't think they do. Maybe Michigan makes a push. That's actually one of my dark horse teams in the Big Ten this year, Trev, is Michigan. But again, that's to get to a 4. I don't see Penn State being back in the mix. I don't, their roster from 2 years ago is completely depleted. That's not the same team. It's not like you're taking 24 roster and then now Matt Campbell and his group have to coach it up. This is basically a slightly improved version of Iowa. This is Iowa State 2.0 from a roster standpoint. So I think there's a better scenario. There's a more likely scenario that if they get 3, nobody else has more than 3. And then basically the SEC would then say, Trev, well, hey, this is why we don't need the bidding process, because look how balanced it was. This is good for college football because they know most years are going to be more than 3. So that's what I think is more likely to happen.
Yeah, you and I see that the same. Plus, addressing the elephant in the room, like we've talked about really over the last 2.5 months, is, their guaranteed automatic bids is just being a part of ESPN and the playoff committee having a bias towards ESPN and SEC teams. And they got, 5 teams in this year, and Alabama should not have been in the playoffs. So it's like they kind of already have their automatic bid system. Wink, wink, if you get what I'm saying. But I'm selling this one as well. Dante Moore should have entered the draft in a weak quarterback class this season. Next year's class is going to be loaded.
Sell. Very, very much sell. I think that would have been a very short-sighted decision by Dante Moore. Trev, I'm a big believer that I would rather get picked 8 spots lower and be more ready to thrive and play for 10 years than to get picked 8 spots higher, not be ready, and then my career is a mess. Firm believer in that. Yes, Dante Moore might have gone. There's no doubt Dante Moore goes number 1 in this draft. I think he would absolutely get picked higher than Fernando Mendoza.
But, boy.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's physically ready just yet. I don't think he's got the experience that he needs to have. I think he needed another year. And Dante's young for his grade. So I think Dante made the right decision. If I'm him, I would rather go number 6 next year than number 1 this year, because going number 6 next year, you're going to be a better quarterback and more prepared to handle and thrive in the NFL. And that's the big key for a quarterback. More than everyone's about second contract. That's not true for a quarterback, in my opinion. Because you bust out at one place, it's very unlikely that you're going to then thrive somewhere else. It's happened before. We saw it this year with Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield to a degree did all that. But look at what they had to go through to get to this point. Get cut from this team, and then they finally figured out where I'd rather be ready to be the best version of yourself before you go to the NFL. And then you're in a much better position to handle success. Because Sam Darnold, for example, had a lot of years where he didn't make as much money as I'm sure he would have liked to in prime years because of where he was drafted. Now, I don't know that you could argue Sam Darnold wasn't ready, although you could maybe say he might have needed another year. But the other thing, too, is you come out this year, you're going to get picked by the Raiders or the Jets, right? Isn't that 1 and 2?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Hard pass. Hard pass. I mean,
unfortunately, given their track record, it wouldn't surprise me if they had the number 1 or number 2 picks again next year. But
sure.
I agree with what you're saying, man. I mean, look, this was a longevity decision. It really was. And it's the path to least resistance for becoming a franchise quarterback. You go a little bit too early. In terms of early as in when you should have stayed in college versus not. Yeah. No, I think Dante made the right decision. So it's a self-made too.
My point, though, Trev, is if he falls next year, which is kind of where the premise of the question is. Let's say he falls 5, 6, 7 spots because it's a deeper draft class. CJ's ahead of him, Arch is ahead of him, Jeremiah Smith's ahead of him, something like that. Well, then guess what you're not doing? You're not going to the Jets or the Raiders. Right. That's my point. If you're still number 1 next year and you go to one of those teams, now you're going to a bad situation, but you're far better prepared to handle that bad situation. Sure. That's kind of where I'm coming from on it. But yeah, we're on the same page so far, Trev.
As of today, you would not rank Notre Dame's offensive line in the top 5 units in the country, but by the end of the spring, you could potentially move them back into that group.
I'm going to sell that, actually. I'm going to sell that because more and more, I'm starting to believe that what we saw in that video is going to be the offensive line that they're going to trot out the first day of spring practice. That's my belief, Trev. I think based on some things I've gathered, I'm more confident that Will Black is going to be their left tackle to start spring, and Anthony Napa is going to play guard, and Gerby's going to be at right tackle. And even before you even include Jagasol, even without Jagasol, I think that's a top 5 caliber offensive line class or offensive line group. Because you got to look at a lot of the best lines last year lost some pretty important players. I mean, Iowa lost the tackle that's about to be a first-round draft pick. You know, they got a couple kids coming back, and they got another kid that was played a decent amount that'll be back. But like a lot of the best lines from college football, Indiana lost some very important pieces. Now they got Carter Smith coming back. That's obviously very big for them. They get Joe Bruner showing up, but like I'd still think Notre Dame has better talent. Indiana's way better coached. There's no question about that. But I still think that Notre Dame has better talent. So they're one of the 5 most talented offensive lines in college football next year. That may not be the heart of what you're asking, but that's the standard that I'm setting for Notre Dame. That's my expectation for Notre Dame. They need to be one of those units. They need to be one of the top 5 because their talent dictates it. And that's even without Charles Jack. I mean, if Sullivan Absher's your 5th least talented starting offensive lineman, you have a very talented offensive line. If that's your quote-unquote worst guy, and I say worst just because from the standpoint of, I mean, in 2017, somebody had to be 5, and I use the word worst in a meant to be kind of inappropriate manner. Like, like that's the least guy on your roster. That's a pretty good group. Because as I said to you in a phone call the other day, Trev, you could argue that the best game that the offensive line played last year relative to how well they performed and then the quality of the competition that they played was the Pitt game where they had both Joe Otting and Sullivan Absher starting. And I thought Sully had one of his better games that day. So, 100% sell this one.
Yeah, I'm selling it as well. I mean, look, the other thing that we have to take into consideration here, and I agree with everything that you're saying, is for Notre Dame to rank top 5, it's not also just about what they bring to the table. It's also about what other premier offensive lines lost. I know schools like Ohio State bring back 4 of their 5 starters, but like we've talked about before, does that mean they are now going to be a top 3 unit in the country? Because they weren't a top 3 unit in the country last year, and 4 of those 5 guys come back. Now, I'm also not naive to the fact that they could get better. And obviously that's the goal. I've seen Archer in the chat. I'm sure he's hoping that those 4 guys get better as well. You have teams like Miami who lost everybody except for Matthew McCoy. And then a lot of the more experienced units that we've talked about so far are in a lower bracket of college football. Like Navy returns 4 of their 5 starters. The talent at Notre Dame is just going to beat the talent of what Navy has in the trenches 7 days a week. And so, yeah, this is a sell for me as well. I would put them in the top 5 right now. Then another one from D-Troll. Given a magic wand, you would swap Jeremiah Smith for Leonard Moore 1-for-1 with Ohio State.
Sell. I mean, that's an easy sell. And that's not even like Notre Dame homerism. That's, I would rather have an elite corner than an elite wide receiver. I can make an elite wide receiver room without an elite wide receiver. I can't make an elite DB room without at least 1 or 2 elite DBs. I just don't think you can do it, Trev. I don't care what your scheme is. Just eventually you're going to go against guys who just have better players. I mean, I point to the Miami game last year with Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith goes for over 150 yards. Malachi Toney has 16 yards on 5 catches. Who won the game? Miami by 10. Why? Their defense was way better in that game. Yeah. And they made fewer mistakes at the quarterback level. So this is not at all like it's not even like I got to pick my guy, my Notre Dame guy. I would say this if there was another cornerback from someone else that was on the level of Leonard Moore, I'd say the same thing. Absolutely. The only position that I would even dream in theory of replacing an elite corner like Leonard Moore for is if you could give me an elite defensive end or an elite quarterback. That's it. Now, again, I'm saying in theory because I wouldn't do that if I'm at Notre Dame because I think Notre Dame has those things already. You know what I mean, Trev? It's like I'm not trading Leonard Moore for Colin Simmons, who I think is the best defensive end coming back in college football next year. You agree or disagree with that?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. So we agree he's an elite DN. We agree he's the best DN in the country. We agree he's probably a top 5 to 10 NFL draft pick next year. Okay, cool. I'm still not trading him specifically this year because I think Notre Dame with Boubacar Traore, Bryce Young, and Keenan Keeley's fine there. And I think they have arguably the best quarterback in the country coming back. So, but in theory, I would trade an elite cornerback for one of those 2 positions, and that's it. You know, that'd be it. That'd be it. Maybe like an Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh type D tackle. That would be it. But I think Notre Dame's pretty good there. I still wouldn't trade that. But in theory, that'd be the only positions I'd consider. I would never trade an elite corner for an elite wide receiver.
Yeah, respectfully, this is a hard sell for me. I've seen what Notre Dame's wide receiver room looks like without Jeremiah Smith, and I'm very high on Notre Dame's wide receiving core going into this year. People have to step up, and people still have some things to prove, but I love the talent in the room. I don't want to picture what Notre Dame's cornerback room would look like without Leonard Moore. There's great talent in it, but some of it is who do you put in the boundary? Do you put Christian Gray there? Maybe. Are one of the true freshmen ready to step up? Is DJ McKinney going to be healthy enough to take an entire load of what Leonard Moore was going to play this year? I don't know. I don't know the question to any of those things, but I've seen what Jaden Greathouse can do in big moments and what Jordan Faison can do in big moments. So I'm good. Notre Dame got 2 wide receivers from Ohio State already this offseason. I don't need a magic wand to make it a third. I'm good.
Now here's a thought, Trev. If you said, okay, it'd be a 2-man trade. Notre Dame will give you Devin Sanchez and Jeremiah Smith, and you got to give us Leonard Moore and Jordan Faison. Do you take that now?
No, because I'm still taking Leonard Moore over Devin Sanchez this year too.
I might take that trade. Here's why. Devin Sanchez isn't as good as Leonard Moore, but he's an elite talent, and he has 2 years of eligibility. He has to play. Whereas Leonard and Jordan are both gone after this year. That'd be the only way that I would consider it. The only way I could consider it. That would be it.
Oh, it's definitely enticing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you paused. I mean, you had to think about it for a second. Whereas the original question, we didn't even think twice about.
Nah.
Hey, by the way, D-Troll Hunter, man, that is a great way to come correct with all these questions that you had. These were all very good, thoughtful questions that really got this rolling. Well done, my man. Very well done. Let's go next to Grabbing Up Heisman. By the way, Trev, is that sound better? Is the sound okay? Perfect. Let's go. Grubbing Up Heisman is next.
Buy, sell, hold. It's a shame that Lawrence Key's life didn't have him on this team for the pun potential.
I don't get it.
Like probably something like he's the keys to victory or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what he means by life, by the way, is age and time he was in life. But I would be very curious kind of what you mean by that. This is such a good submission that it's flown right over my head. And I don't quite get it. So, Grubbing Up Heisman, if you're listening live, just let us know that it's you in the chat and kind of explain what that means, and then we'll try to get back and respond to it.
With a league that drafts looking at potential, so much Trayvon Walker going number 1, Blake Fisher is a second-round pick, we should mentally be prepared for Young to not be on the 2027 team. Well,
no. So,
yeah, because here's the thing. Like, I love Bryce Young, and I understand where you're coming from here. But, measurables are very impressive, but he had 1.5 sacks last year. Trayvon Walker was a proven collegiate player when he went. It wasn't just because he was a athletic freak. He had a very proven track record in the last season that he played in college football. Blake Fisher was a 2 to 3 year starter at tackle, I think, because he went in the 24 draft. So played from 21 to 23, had one of his better performances against Ohio State in 2023, going up against other NFL caliber talent. Bryce Young has yet to have that moment. So, I mean, is there a world where he breaks out and gets 12 sacks this upcoming year and takes his talents to the NFL? I mean, potentially, but I'm selling this one. I'm not there yet.
I also want to remind you that while Blake Fisher was a second-round pick and was a true underclassman, like true junior, I should say, that was a different situation. Very different situation. And Trayvon Walker was a 4-year player. So there's just different scenarios, in my opinion. Bryce Young is not, with the parent that he has, he's not leaving Notre Dame early to be a second-round draft pick. Or a borderline first-round draft pick. I just don't see it. Don't see it.
I'm with you. From Coach LA, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame and athletic director Pete Bavacqua will play a huge role in major football programs pulling away from the conference-style league. They help usher in a more independent-style TV contract with the majority players. 10-year time frame. Not buy, sell, hold with the current greedy state of college football. Why do the top 10 to 15% of teams need the lower-tier programs to have good TV contract?
Well, because they're part of a conference and they've given up their rights to negotiate individually to be part of the conference. That's why. Now, there's an interesting, I think it was Dan Wetzel, I believe, who had a comment. I don't know if it was on ESPN, if it was on a podcast. I saw the clip on YouTube where he's talking about, like, allegedly, for example, the Notre Dame-Michigan game generates $200 million in revenue, which is insane. Why does Michigan and the Big Ten need Ohio, or why does Michigan and Ohio State need the Big Ten anymore? For football, they don't. What they need them is for the other sports. The tricky part is you have a lot of these schools that if they decided to go independent could realize they could probably get pretty good TV revenue deals, but they would have to have something else to go along with the rest of their sports. The Big Ten is not going to allow, let's say Ohio State and Michigan's grant of rights contracts run up after 2026. It's just for argument's sake. Let's say USC, Michigan, Ohio State. USC or Michigan and Ohio State say, hey, listen, we don't need the Big Ten. With what the Big Ten's trying to do, we don't need that. We can go on our own and actually make more money, because if we have the rights to the game and we package them together, we could demand a lot of money from TV networks, because they'll want to pay us $100 million each just to get that game. And then anything beyond what they make in all the other home games is just gravy. You know, it's money on top. right? So they're going to make their money back on them. They're going to pay. Let's say they paid $100 million to each, $100 million. Bam, Michigan here. So that $100 million kind of washes out the $200 million that you're making for that game, right? Well, maybe you could maybe sell it even more, but think of the revenue you're going to generate on all the other games. It's going to, you know what I mean? Like now, all of a sudden, it more than pays for itself to be part of some independent league or something like that. Sure, you could see that, but then what are they going to do with all their other sports? That's the question. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. Are they going to have all their other? I heard Brian Smith talking about this on one of his shows the other day. Are they going to have them join like the Big East, the MAC? I mean, what exactly are they going to do with all their other sports? You know what I mean? Like you've got to find a home. It's not just as simple as saying, "Hey, we're gonna go do this." So, to your point, Coach LA. I am actually surprised in this era of greed that more teams aren't threatening to leave and go independent. Most teams are threatening to leave to join another conference where they can make more money. I think there's a lot more value to being independent nowadays than people realize. And it's funny to start hearing some of those teams talk about it. Some of those same fan bases that hate Notre Dame for being independent are going to start saying like, hey, maybe we should do, and I agree. I mean, if I'm Ohio State and Michigan and USC, I'm thinking like, why do we need Rutgers? Why do we need Northwestern? Why do we need Purdue? Why do we need Maryland? We don't need them. Like we're not getting enough out of those markets. And now the Big Ten's trying to expand even more, which I think is going to, maybe upset some people. But yeah, I'm not sure what I can buy or sell or hold here. But I buy the notion of what do they need those programs for if it's all about the TV revenue. Because like you all have all you conference teams have all said, you don't care about conference loyalty anymore. If any of you had conference loyalty, this is a two-way street. None of you would have USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon wouldn't have voted to leave the Pac-12 if there was conference loyalty. And the Big Ten teams would not have voted to accept them if there was conference loyalty. They would not have voted to accept Rutgers and Maryland, especially Maryland, from the ACC if there was conference loyalty. The SEC would not have voted to take Texas and Oklahoma if there was conference loyalty, or Texas A&M before. There's no loyalty either way. So at some point in time, I think some team is going to figure it out and say, hey, I think we can actually make some money. And it's going to be something where some streaming service is going to pay them a ton of money to try to get them over. That's what I think is going to happen. And then I think the dominoes start to fall.
Sure.
That's kind of what I think. But for like the Michigan-Ohio State game, I think you'd kind of need them to act as codependents as opposed to independently. They'd have to go somewhere together. That's where I think, yeah. Yeah, because I don't agree that Notre Dame is the only team that can be independent. I think Notre Dame's the only team that's willing to take the chance of being independent. Because the difference here of what Dan Wetzel was saying is it's different than just Texas choosing to go independent on their own. What he was saying is, what if Michigan and Ohio State did this thing together and said, we're leaving together because we're going to take the game. And we're going to sign with somebody independently that's going to pay us all this money. And now we don't have to deal with all this Big Ten mess. That's a different deal. Could another school do it independently? I think if it was ever going to happen, it would happen now. Because again, Trev, you don't think Paramount's looking to do, you don't think Amazon's looking to sign, you know what I mean? You don't think the Netflix would love to, you get what I'm saying? Like somebody would love to get an Ohio State, a Michigan, something like that as their independent, knowing that it might then attract more and more schools to come over there to them. So I think if it was ever going to happen, it'll happen in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know that it will happen, but I think if it was ever going to happen, it'll be now. I don't want that to be the route that it goes. I still would love that if all the TV contracts got pulled together, including Notre Dame's. That's when I'd be okay with it. Like, okay, Notre Dame, join this TV system, revenue system that everybody's jumping into. You don't have to join a conference, but you're saying, okay, all of P4 is going to now come together under one umbrella, or whatever NBC wants to pay to have all the Notre Dame games, fine. They have the rights to that, but they're paying this one system, and then everybody gets paid the same amount. And then maybe some teams do get removed from the P4 level at that point in time, but I think ultimately that's what I would support more than anything.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I get that completely.
I just feel like if that happened, Trev, these mega conferences would quickly die. There's no more need for Texas and Oklahoma to be playing in the SEC at that point in time.
Sure.
There's no more need for USC and UCLA, Washington, Oregon to be in the Big Ten anymore. Matter of fact, it's not cost. It's a cost detriment, right? I mean, it's like, wait a minute, why are we in this league? We're not getting more money being in this league than we would in the old Pac-12. So why are we in this league when we've got to spend all this money on travel if we're all getting the same amount of money? The only way that they choose to join that league is because the amount of money they would lose from travel, they more than make up for what they're getting paid. That's what it is.
Sure. It'd just be interesting to see if that move actually does happen. Where does Oregon and USC go? Do they go back to the Pac-12? That's like forming a new conference actively. I think that would be interesting too.
Yeah, or would they be forced to kind of join and like create a new league? The old Pac-12 becomes a new league. That'd be very interesting.
Another one from Coach LA. Biso holds Cignetti comes back down to earth the second he loses his offensive and defensive coordinator.
So I think you could argue that Curt Cignetti has did more to build them up than the other way around. Like let's not act like Bryant Haynes was like this proven defensive coordinator, came to Curt Cignetti and did for him here's a perfect example. When Dabo hired Brent Venables. I mean, when he had Kevin Strong as his defensive coordinator, Kevin Steele, as his defensive coordinator, they were scoring 30 points in the Orange Bowl and losing by 40. Remember that, Trev? When West Virginia hung a 70 spot on them?
Oh, yeah.
And then they went and got, Dabo, and all of a sudden, the rest is history. I mean, so I'm gonna have to disagree with the sentiment that Bryant Haynes and Mike Shanahan are the drivers of his success, and then without them, he's nothing. I just I don't. Well,
let's also not act like Indiana is not raising very rapidly in the ranks of a good destination spot for coaches. I mean, Curt Cignetti going from James Madison to Indiana won them a national championship in 2 years. Currently on FanDuel, they're tied for second in the best odds to win the national championship this upcoming season. Mm-hmm. So that being said, it's not going to be hard for Curt Cignetti if he does lose both Mike Shanahan and Bryant Haynes. That I don't think it's going to be difficult to replace them.
Yeah,
we've said it on this channel before too. Nobody's irreplaceable. I mean,
and he's shown a track record for hiring good coaches. Do you know who his defensive coordinator was at JMU before he promoted Bryant Haynes? It's Corey Heatherman. Mm-hmm. The guy that just won the Bros Award as the best D coordinator in football in Miami. Yeah. They did great things together at James Madison. He hired James Madison he hired Mike Shanahan at James Madison. So it's like he has a track record of hiring good football coaches at the places he's been. So I think those guys are very talented coaches. I think they were built up by Curt Cignetti just as much, if not more so, than what, they did for Curt Cignetti. So I think he comes back down to earth because, I don't even know what that would mean for him. I think Indiana's here to stay, folks. What does that mean? I think they're going to perennially be a top 3 to 4 team in the Big Ten for a few years. They just showed this offseason they can completely restock their roster in the portal, and they've got the money to do so. He's not going anywhere. And I think he'll continue to win, just like he won at JMU, just like he won at Elon, just like he won at IUP. So I don't think he's going anywhere.
Buy, sell, hold from BC from BV. Starting back this year, Reggie Brooks, Julius Jones, Jadarian Price.
I love the Notre Dame backs. I mean, they're great players. But I'm sorry, I'd have to buy Reggie Brooks. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I completely read that the wrong way. I read that as Reggie Bush. If I could have one of those three, I would buy Reggie Brooks. I would hold Julius Jones, and I would sell Jadarian Price. And I would hate to have to choose between the three of them. My favorite player of that trio is Julius Jones. He's the native Virginian, and I'm always partial to players from Virginia. But Reggie had the best year of all of them. He was special in 1992. But honestly, Trev, you could pick any order you want, and I think it's a win no matter what.
100%. I'd probably go. I don't really remember watching him live too much, but I've seen a lot of what Julius Jones did from a highlight tape standpoint. So I'd probably buy Julius Jones. He reminds me the most of what Jeremiah Love brought to the table, and then probably hold Jadarian Price. The only reason why I'm selling Reggie Brooks is the tale as old as time with me. I didn't watch him play. So
the thing about Julius that I'd be curious to see, Trev, is I would love to see what he could have done behind a great offensive line, because he never got to play behind a great offensive line. And the only year he played behind a good offensive line, he was very good.
Yeah.
Very good. But that's a win-win-win, in my opinion.
Out of those three running backs, who would you say was the best in pass pro?
Probably Julius. I mean, Reggie did very little pass pro the way that Notre Dame played. Jadarian has not been great in pass pro so far. That's a knock on him. I'd say probably Julius. Yeah. And think about, you could say, well, I'll take Jadarian because he's a great kick returner. So was Julius early in his career. He had a 100-yard kick return against Nebraska. That might be the knock on Reggie, is Reggie was just a great running back. Those other guys did a lot of other things.
Buy, sell, hold from BJM and 41. These disappointing teams that didn't make the playoffs last year will make it this year. Penn State, LSU, Clemson.
So let's buy one, sell one, hold one, Trev. Of those three, I would probably buy – oh, man. I'll probably buy LSU, hold Clemson, sell Penn State. Yeah. I thought about taking Clemson because I think they're going to be a bit of a surprise team this year, and I think the ACC is easier for them to make it, like win it. But I think you could be the third or fourth best team in the SEC, and you're basically going to be a lock to get in.
Yeah, I have the same order as well. I'm with you. What about this one? Linebacker Jaden Ausberry is the most underrated and underappreciated starter on defense by Notre Dame fans.
I'm going to sell that. He's second. The most underrated and underappreciated starter by fans is Drake Bowen.
100%.
And it's not close. You don't have shows that dedicate their time to trying to convince people that Drake Bowen's not that good. They just don't appreciate Ausberry. But there's no anti-Jaden Ausberry sentiment out there. I think Jaden Ausberry is absolutely underrated and underappreciated. No doubt. But there's nobody more underrated and underappreciated than Drake Bowen.
Agreed 100%.
All right, let's get to this next one, Trev.
Notre Dame gets a bye. So then buy, sell, hold. The round you would prefer Notre Dame to face Michigan, USC, and Ohio State to win it all. So if they get that's the order. They would face Michigan in the quarters, USC in the semis, and Ohio State in the championship then? I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only way we can make it a buy, sell, hold. I'm kind of reading it as what round would you prefer those teams to be in? But that's not really a buy, sell, hold answer. So we're just going to take it from the order that he put it in.
Yeah, I mean, overall, if this was the order, I would buy it from like a fan's perspective because it would be cool for Notre Dame to face, their two, like one historic rival, another rival where they straight up just don't like, and then Ohio State's kind of like that Midwest power rival. Like they don't play for a trophy. Their game when they play isn't called anything, but that is now one of the programs that is rivaling you now for recruits and for viewership and for all those things. So,
And has kicked
I
your
mean,
butt so far in the last few
yeah,
years.
yeah. Uh, but out of all those, practically, I have a hard time buying it because I don't see Michigan making the quarterfinals. I don't see USC making the semifinals, especially that one. I could see Ohio State playing for the national championship once again, but so from a fan, like if I had to prefer it, I mean, sure, but I don't know if I love Notre Dame's only path being just all Big Ten teams. Now, the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships, so might be some merit there, but I also wouldn't mind beating Alabama along the way, a Texas. There's other teams individually that I would fill in for one of those 3.
Although, Trev, I tend to agree with you. Having said that, wouldn't it be nice to not only beat those Big Ten teams and pretty much say, Big Ten, we own you? And then when the SEC says, yeah, but you say, pipe down. You couldn't even beat the team that we just beat. So sit in the back and shut your pie hole. Okay. You guys are third now. It's us, then it's the Big Ten, and then you guys are down here fighting for scraps with the ACC.
Yeah.
Like that would actually be kind of fun.
That would be great. I'll say this. I would hate it if USC made it to the semifinals. Like the year that they campaigned to get Notre Dame off of their schedule because it gives them a better opportunity to make the playoffs, and then they play in the semifinals of the playoffs that following year. I would just hate that for the rivalry in general. So that carries
I
a
would
lot of weight
much
too.
rather see USC struggle this year, and then whatever home game they get to replace Notre Dame has like 70% capacity. So you still sucked, but you didn't even get the payday that comes with playing Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like that would be tremendous.
Another one for BJM and 41. What is most likely to happen? So again, buy one, sell one, hold one. CJ Carr throws for 4,000 yards. Aeneas Williams has over 20 touchdowns. Or Tay has over 4 pick sixes.
I mean, buy the CJ Carr 4,000 yards of those options. Easily sell that Tay Johnson has 4 pick sixes. Over 4 pick sixes. Like, if he just has 5 picks, that's an All-American season, much less that they all go for touchdowns. Like, that's just, I don't know that I've ever heard of such a thing. That is the most unrealistic thing on there. The other 2 won't be easy. Aeneas with 20 touchdowns will be even tougher than CJ getting to 4,000 yards, even in a 15-game season. But the first 2 are real things that we've seen Notre Dame players either do or come close to doing. The last one is like, I don't know that anyone in college football has ever even done that before. So I can't even fathom that.
No.
Somebody just said video game numbers. I've never even done that in a video game. I've never had one guy get 5 pick sixes.
No.
Even in a video game.
No.
So, yeah, that one's.
I'm with you. I hear me out on this one. I think I'm going to buy Aeneas Williams over 20 touchdowns for his contributions in the run and pass game. Plus, I don't know how many games CJ is going to be playing in the fourth quarter. I think that's also a factor. You can make the same case for Aeneas Williams, but I've seen significantly more running backs come close to or have over 20 touchdowns over the course of like an entire season than a quarterback throwing for over 4,000 yards. I mean, that would be CJ breaking the all-time schools record. Obviously, I think he's very capable of it, but I'll probably buy Aeneas over 20 touchdowns, hold CJ Carr throws for over 4,000, and then I'm definitely selling Tay Johnson over 4 pick sixes because that would be nuts.
My thing is, I think Notre Dame plays 15 games this year, and CJ only has to average 267 yards a game to get to 4,000. Whereas Aeneas could certainly do that, Trev. My only pushback on that, why I didn't take it, was I think he's going to split carries more so than we saw last year. And I think while this team is going to be more run-oriented, he could take advantage of that more than what Jeremiah Jadarian did. But I think it's more so the more of the split carries than what we saw last year was my hesitation there. But those are far more realistic things than. the third one.
Buy, sell, hold past Notre Dame teams that would give this 2026 team the most problems. 2012, 2005, 2018.
2018 buy, hold 2005, sell 2012. Yeah. The 2012 secondary would have issues with this current team, and the 2012 offense would have trouble scoring on this team. The 2005 team could score to a degree on this team, and their O-line or their D-line is good enough to maybe potentially apply some pressure. That's a very good, underrated D-line, especially before Chris Fromm got injured.
Yeah.
But you had Derek Landry, Trevor Laws, you had Victor Abiamiri. When Chris Fromm went down, that's when you started to have issues. You had Ronald Talley and Justin Brown taking over, and your pass rush wasn't as effective down the stretch. But that 2018 team would be the best because you had legit wide receivers, like legit NFL receivers in pass game. You had a legit NFL running back. You had a solid, steady quarterback. You had a pretty good offensive line that had multiple and future NFL players on it. But the other thing, too, is you had a legit corner room, really good safeties, legit linebacker room, and a defensive line that could give this offensive line some problems. So I would go 18. The only problem with the 18 team would be obviously the head coach, and was a bit of an issue, but he was also the head coach of the 12 team, and Charlie Weiss is the head coach of the 05 team. But the 18 team would have issues. They would get out coached by this current staff.
Yeah, in
my opinion, even though their talent level was very good, very, very good.
Yeah, and this isn't a shot at any of those previous teams, but one thing that I think that's crazy about this 2026 team, all three of those defenses would have struggled with the speed that Notre Dame has. And that's a real great spot to be in. I mean, the 2012 team I would argue that offense might actually get shut down. I mean, honestly, like that, they would struggle to move the ball with the
size. It would look a lot like the game against Bama, a lot like the game against Michigan, a lot like their game against Stanford, a lot like their game against BYU. Anytime they played a really good defense that year, they struggled to move the ball for a host of reasons.
100%. Another one from B. Jammin. Buy, sell, hold these defensive back combinations. So option 1, Leonard Moore, Bobby Taylor, Harrison Smith. Option 2, Todd Light, Shane Walton, Xavier Watts. Or option 3, Ben Morrison, Julian Love, Kyle Hamilton.
Man. Well, the buy is an easy one for me. It's Leonard Moore, Bobby Taylor, and Harrison Smith. That's a pretty easy buy for me. The next one gets difficult. So are we just talking about I'll answer it this way, Trev. You can answer however you want. Just the kind of college players they were. I'm taking the second one as my hold and the third one as my sell. Because Xavier Watts was a better college football player than Kyle Hamilton. Will he be a better NFL player? Remains to be seen. Kyle Hamilton had one great year at Notre Dame, and then he had a half a year where he had some spectacular games, but also some moments where he was like, okay, dude, come on, bro. And then he basically missed the rest of the year. Didn't play the rest of the year. That's it. Julian Love was a heck of a player. Limited. He was a scheme. As a corner, he could thrive in certain schemes. I remember in 2018 against Michigan, they came out and they're like, we're going to play more man. And Nico Collins torched him. It's like, yeah, we're going to go back to playing zone. He just wasn't that guy. Benjamin Morrison was a heck of a player, but Benjamin Morrison, as good as he was, you can't stack his career up against Todd Light and Leonard Moore because he just couldn't stay healthy long enough. And he only had 2 great years. Todd Light had 3 great years. Leonard Moore's already had 2 great years and has another coming up. Benjamin had 2 great years and then an injury-plagued 3rd season. I think Shane Walton's career matches very similarly to Julian Love's. Neither of them, in my opinion, were as good as Bobby Taylor. And then Harrison Smith was a very underrated player at Notre Dame. So I'm going to buy a hold actually in the order he presented them. But here's the deal, Trev. They're all wins.
Yeah.
Like they're all great trios. But I got to pick one. So I picked one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you told me that I had to have one of these 3, you're in a good spot no matter what. But I'm with you. I'm going to buy the first one. I'm going to – I didn't get to watch Shane Walton or Todd Light play, But look, man, it's hard for me to sell anything that includes Xavier Watts. That guy was just different. And so it's hard for me to do that. So that's where I'm at. I'm with you. Same order. Getting into part 2 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We have the buy-sell hold going on today. And in part 2, we have our guy Dangerous Dan getting us kicked off here. Sacks will make up a greater percentage of tackles for a loss in 2026 than in previous Coach Marcus Freeman seasons because the offense will force teams to play catch-up.
Oh, I like where your head's at. I'm gonna buy this partly because of I think your reasoning is spot on, but part of it is because I still don't know how Chris Ash and this defense is going to let the defensive line loose against the run. I don't know the answer to that. I have said before I could see a world in which the linebackers are turned loose more because of how they use the D-line, which is a way to go that can work very effectively if you do it right. There's a lot of ways to, successfully put a dominant defense on the field. If that's true, then his answer even more so becomes a yay. So the other answer is this defensive line is so dominant that even though their sacks are way up, their tackles for loss are also way up, and it ends up balancing it out. But with the premise of what you said and the fact that we don't know how Chris Ash is going to really utilize the front this year, I'm going to buy this.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it as well. I mean, a greater percentage. I mean, I have what it's been a couple seasons really since Notre Dame's tackle for loss numbers weren't strongly driven by sack numbers. I mean, that was one of my biggest gripes the last 2 years, honestly, was the lack of disruption behind the line of scrimmage. Heck, some of it's just going to be their ability to finish plays. I mean, Brian, we were up in the press box for the Boise State game. How many missed opportunities did they have in the backfield when Maddox Madsen was back there scrambling around? So some of it's just going to be their ability to finish on key plays. But by and large, yeah, Dan, I'm going to buy this one too.
Just a heads up, there's a few of these about Robert Duvall. There's 3 of them. Obviously, Robert Duvall passed away last week. Great actor and played in some of my favorite movies. But so there's 3 of these, Trev. Early years, middle age, and then older years. So just prepare yourself for these.
Right on. Well, let's get it kicked off with the early years then. Buy One, Sell One, Hold One, To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, True Grit in 1969, or MASH in 1970.
I was not a big John Wayne fan. My dad is going to be so mad at me for saying that. And MASH, I don't know that I ever saw the movie. I remember watching the TV show a little bit, but I never was really a big MASH guy. To Kill a Mockingbird is an American classic, in my opinion. And he didn't have a main role, but he had obviously a role in it. And so, yeah, I have to go To Kill a Mockingbird. I think, wasn't Gregory Peck the main lead in that? Hold on a second. Let me see here. Movie, To Kill a Mockingbird movie. I could be wrong. Yeah, it was Gregory Peck. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my buy. And then I would hold True Grit just because, it does have John Wayne in it. And then I'd sell MASH. I was never a big MASH fan, to be honest with you. Didn't dislike it, just never liked it. So that's the way I'd go. Buy To Kill a Mockingbird, hold True Grit, sell MASH.
We have the same order simply because I did not know they made a MASH movie. I thought it was just a TV show.
I honestly didn't either. I didn't know it was a movie.
Well, now we know.
Yep.
Transition over to the middle years. The Godfather 1 and 2, 1972 and 1974. Network in 76 and Apocalypse Now in 1979.
This is the easiest one of the 3. I'm buying the Godfather movies. First of all, I love the Godfather movies. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm buying, he was obviously, he's Tom Hagen, the attorney, obviously, or the consigliere for the Don in the first 2, and obviously had some different roles. He was like sort of the adopted brother kind of thing of Michael and Sonny and Connie. But I will hold Apocalypse Now. I wasn't a big fan of that movie. I loved his character in the movie, and he had one of the best lines of the movie. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know what I mean? Like one of the most iconic lines from that movie. And then I'm selling the Network because I never saw the Network. So, yeah.
Yeah, Same order for pretty much those exact same reasons. I've never seen The Network, and Godfather 1 and 2 might just be two of the best movies of all time, let alone just the best movies with Robert Duvall in it. So
the debate is which one is better. That's
then
between the two. It's not a debate between what's better of those four. It's which of the two Godfathers is the best. I'm torn. I'm back and forth. I sometimes think two, sometimes think one. I usually tend to lean towards one because the original is still the original. You know, I mean, it sets a lot of scenes and all the. Yeah, I think by the time we get to two, Sonny's gone. You know, and like there's a lot of different things. So I still go one, but there's days, Trev, where I'm like watching two, and I'm like, man, because like I love the flashback scenes with Robert De Niro in two.
Yeah,
I think those were spectacularly done. But I still go one. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Apocalypse Now as a movie. It was weird.
Yeah, it was fine. It was just one of those that when I watched it, I didn't walk away like unsatisfied, but I also didn't walk away like that movie was fan. I'm not recommending
it's a classic
to watch.
Yeah, right. Agree.
Then in the later years, Tender Mercies in 1983, The Natural in 84, Gods and Generals in 03, and Secondhand Lions in 03.
So I gotta buy Secondhand Lions because that's one of my favorite, most underrated movies ever. Have you ever seen Secondhand Lions with Michael Caine? Trev, you gotta watch it. I think I've got a good track record so far. It's got Haley Joel Osment in it, and then Robert Duvall he's brothers with Michael Caine. Incredible movie. And it was like Robert Duvall in his element, and like you could picture like that being him in real life. I don't know if it was or wasn't. Like it just seemed like a movie, a character built for Robert Duvall. It was very, very well done. I'm torn here between The Natural and Gods and Generals. I'd probably lean towards Gods and Generals as my hold. But you gave 4, so I don't want to leave anybody else. I'll hold both The Natural and Gods and Generals, and then I'll sell Tender Mercies because I never saw Tender Mercies.
This is probably going to lose me a lot of cred. I have not seen any of these 4 movies.
I mean, they're all before you were born. I get that. In the order in which I would tell you to watch them, Trev, is Secondhand Lions, just because it's my favorite. But you watch The Natural because it's an iconic movie. It's a classic movie. It's a tad overrated in my opinion, but it's still a very good movie. Gods and Generals is obviously a Civil War movie, and then you don't have to watch Tender Mercies because I've never watched Tender Mercies, so I'd have to go watch that myself.
Yeah, heard that.
So yeah, that would be the order in which I would tell you to watch them.
Right on.
So good stuff. A tremendous actor, obviously.
Yeah. Got a household chores buy, sell, hold here. The kitchen garbage can is always empty, partially full, or overflowing.
Well, I think just you have to buy partially full because there's a lot longer span in which it can be partially full than it can be overflowing or empty. So, and I would say it's probably empty more than it's overflowing at my house. So I would buy partially full, hold empty, sell overflowing. Overflowing trash cans is one of my big pet peeves. So I usually, once I see that, I do something about it.
Yeah, fair. I'm going to buy partially full. I'm going to hold overflowing, and I'm going to sell empty because if the trash can's empty, that means the trash is somewhere around my apartment. So that's the order I'm going. From JP is for Notre Dame, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will win a college football national championship. The last time was 1988, before the NCAA men's college basketball team makes it to a regional final, the Elite Eight. The last time was in 2015 and 2016.
I'll buy that because Notre Dame is way closer to winning a national championship in football than the basketball team is to even making the tournament, much less winning 3 games. Wouldn't they have to win 3 games to get there? Then a 4th would get them to the Final Four, correct? Unless they're in one of those play-in games. Yeah. But you got to win the round of 64, win the round of 32, and then win the round of 16. Like right now, I don't know that they could win 3 games in the ACC tournament the way that they've played the last couple of years, for several years.
I don't know if
So
once they get into ACC play, if they can win 3 games in a row in the regular season, let
it's true.
alone win 3 games in the big dance. This is probably one of the easier buys that I've had during my time, but for two reasons. One, because I'm extremely high on this Notre Dame team, and I could very well see them winning one here in less than a calendar year. Also, because the men's basketball team is significantly farther behind Notre Dame's football team as a program. Now, I will say this: Notre Dame does host the number 1 team in the country tonight. They do play Duke. Our friends over at FanDuel have the Fighting Irish as 17.5-point dogs. So, and I don't think Jalen Harrelson is playing tonight either, which isn't great. And obviously, Marcus Burton is still out. Kevin Jai is out for the rest of the season. So the roster is starting to look thinner and thinner. But maybe they'll be able to cover, not win, but cover if Cole Serta has another one of those 30-plus point performances that he's had a couple times over the last month. But not looking forward to tuning into that. Another one from JP. The economic resources that Notre Dame has made to the Notre Dame college football program makes it very difficult to have the required economic resources for the Notre Dame men's college basketball program to be an elite men's college basketball team.
So I don't think that's the case at all. I think the success of the football team has created more revenue that they've used to then build up the basketball programs even more. There aren't people that are giving money to football and then just, sorry, we're tapped out, we can't give to basketball. That's not. I mean, you just signed one of the best recruiting classes in the country last year. You had a 5-star McDonald's All-American, 2 or 3 other top 100 recruits, and you have a losing record. Like, I don't think money's the problem. I think there are bigger issues in both men's and women's basketball right now.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with men's basketball, too, because you don't see it as much, especially in women's college basketball, but the level of one-and-dones that teams like Duke and North Carolina and, other premier college basketball teams have, those kids aren't coming to Notre Dame. One of the biggest selling points at Notre Dame is the degree that you get. And college basketball, it's different than the recruiting pitch than it is for football. Now, with that being said, they still brought in the highest ranked recruiting class they've ever brought in program history. That includes recruits that includes, the team that had recruits on it that took them to the Elite Eight in back-to-back years. But there's a lot of obstacles, in my opinion, that make it difficult for Notre Dame's men's basketball to be that premier program. It's always going to be kind of the cycle, and the cycle now needs to be broken because it's been a lot of years of bad. And I say that lightly, but it has to model somewhat of what it looked like from that, 2011, 2012 up to the 2015, 2016. They made that run in 15 with a lot of experienced guys. They had great rotation depth behind it. Notre Dame is not going to be, until I get proven otherwise, they're not going to be a program that gets like a Zion Williamson who's in college for a year and then goes to the NBA. That's just a tough sell for a program like Notre Dame. So, but I do sell that it's economic issues. Texas will cancel the Notre Dame games in 28 and 29 because they feel playing Notre Dame hurts more than helps their chances of making the college football national championship playoffs.
I'm gonna sell that. I don't really feel like I don't really feel confident in selling it, but the comments made by their AD race recently has me a little bit more optimistic that they will at least keep that one, especially since it's further down the road.
Yeah, I'm going to hope sell this because I'm hoping that teams go away from this mindset. We got to stop with the, playing X team hurts your chances of making the playoffs. The mindset shift needs to be, we need to play this team because it helps gear us up for the playoffs. It's a litmus test, and it lets us know where we truly are as a program. We got to get out of this, building a resume to just make the dance. You don't want to just get in the door at prom. You want to be the prom king. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm really hoping that other teams start to do, because it's benefited some of these other teams. That's how I look at it. From Dirtbag Jake 13, buy so hold. To think that the O-line seating arrangement wasn't by accident. You think that the O-line seating arrangement wasn't by accident.
Talked about this earlier. I had to cut part of this out, but no, I don't think that was by accident.
No, I don't either. I'm with you. How about this one? Nolan James Jr., player that you were very fond of, has the potential to push for the RB1 spot this season.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I think he does.
I think that the running back room, Brian, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. I think that the conversation, especially if Kedron Young is fully healthy or as close to fully healthy come spring practice, I think that room, the competition is much more wide open than what people think that it is. And that's not a shot at Aeneas. I think that's just you have three very talented backs with Nolan James being the dark horse. But
Agree.
I think it's very much up for debate. I really do. From Dirtbag Jake, buy so hold. Ebenezer Utade has the quickest first step you've seen from a Notre Dame edge player's senior film in a decade.
Sell. A decade. Hold on, that has to go back to 2017. Oh, man. I'll buy that he's in the conversation. But, oh, man. Okay, so when we say decade, do we go 17 to 26?
Yeah.
That's 10 years.
Like
we don't go 16,
seasons,
16, which is like 11, right? Ooh, because then he might, because that would get Julian Aguara out of the conversation. He had a great first step. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. Yeah, I'll actually have to buy that now that I talk through it, because like I'm sitting there thinking like, man, Aaron Lynch and then, Julian Aguara, but they weren't in the last year. So, yeah, I will have to go with, yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, and honestly, one of the guys that's in the conversation for also having it is his classmate, Rodney Dunham.
I was just about to ask,
You know what I
how
mean?
close is Rodney Dunham to that conversation?
Ebenezer's slightly more explosive. Rodney's more powerful. Rodney has a little bit better technical proficiency, but I'd give the burst edge slightly to him. Now Boubacar has a great first step, but that didn't flash in high school the same way, at least not consistently. And I mean, early on, I was projecting Boubacar to be a D tackle. I mean, he just was he was bigger in high school than he's been the last 2 years in Notre Dame. He lost some weight because he had trouble staying healthy. And so instead of putting weight on him, they streamlined him a little bit and then turned him into an edge player. But early on, it was like, is he going to be a big end or a D tackle? So he's in the conversation, no doubt. But I'd still probably go with Ebenezer just as far as just that first step. His first step's really impressive. Now, you could put Keon in the conversation if you want to go back to his high school film. So you could argue that 3 of the 4 best first steps they've signed, Logan Thomas is in the conversation as well. But if you look at the last decade, I would argue that 4 of the 5 best first steps that we've seen from an edge player in the last decade are currently on the roster. And Boubacar and Bryce Young are not 2 of those players for what they did in high school.
That's
because he's had senior film. Now, Boubacar's first step now is electric, but it wasn't quite as good in high school.
Yeah, that is.
If you remember, Trev, I had Boubacar ranked very low on my defensive class board of my current ranking coming out of high school. He was my number one upside guy. He had the highest ceiling of anybody there. But he needed a lot of work. He had to prove he could stay healthy. He played like not even half of his senior year. There was always like this, there's loads of potential, but with Boubacar. Well, last year we started, and that was true up until last year. A lot of potential, but could he stay healthy? And that's still something he has to prove. Last year was the first healthy year Boubacar had since his junior year of high school. Hopefully that can continue his senior year.
Here's hoping. Here is hoping.
I'll read this one, Trev, because this is all you. From Dirtbag Jake 13. Trev and I, referring to Dirtbag Jake, can link up for a round of golf this summer.
Well, Jake, believe me, brother, I would love nothing more than to buy this, but I got to run some stuff up the chain of command. You guys know how that goes. But
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you weren't talking about me? Oh, my bad. Wrong chain of command.
It's my professional chain of command. The mothership is I'll have to check and see, but hopefully, I'm gonna try to get out as much as I can this year. I know I'm doing the Hillsdale Golf Scramble again with Vince later on in the summer, so that should be fun again. Get up there, see him and Dylan, but I'm gonna buy it because any day on the course is a good day, Jake.
You know what we should do, Trev? We should do something over the summer. And I don't know that this summer will make sense to do it, but maybe we could plan something for 27. Maybe this is something that I'll put onto your plate. We should plan some IB golf outing. We could make it like a fundraiser. You know what I mean? Like I could get with a local golf course and we could do something where, obviously we try to raise money and sponsorships and all that. And then we do, give it to some local community, some community, some charity or something locally. But that might actually be something we could maybe start planning to do. And then if it goes well the first year, we do it again. But that might actually be fun. Do some sort of like IB golf outing that we do as a fundraiser and get people together and that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Let's maybe talk more about that. Let's maybe talk more about that. This summer, I don't think is going to work, but I think down the road, that'd be fun.
I am all sorts of down for that. We could do a bunch of stuff. Closest to the pin on par threes, you buy in, all proceeds go to a charity, a local business. Same thing with, buying mulligans, all that stuff. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'd have my mom come in and like cater the after party or something like that. Like that would be a blast. That would be a blast. We should do something like that. Let's look into that. That'd be fun.
From Law Dog, Biso hold these games to attend. Winnebago to Green Bay to watch the gauntlet get thrown down. Fly to Salt Lake or drive to Provo to watch the Pop-Tarts Never Bowl.
Of those two, I would buy the Winnebago to Green Bay to watch the gauntlet. First of all, Trev, you know my stance on that. I mean, I think that would be a lot of fun. I've talked about that. That's not quite an RV, but that's close enough. You know what I mean? And depending on what size you get, it's pretty much an RV. I mean, it's basically an RV. But I think that'd be a blast. And I've said this before. I'm very much looking forward to going to Provo and watching the game. So like I was playing. So like the weekend my wife was out of town. I haven't played NCAA football since the summer. Like I haven't played the game since the summer. CFB 26, I haven't played since the summer. So when Andrew was out of town, wasn't feeling good. I didn't want to wear something. I'm just going to sit on the couch and play some NCAA. Right? I got this big old TV. I want to play some NCAA. So I'm playing it, and I always change the schedule, the conferences and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm just having some fun with it. So anyway, I put BYU on the schedule because they weren't on the schedule. And I put the at BYU for 2026 on the schedule. And then they go to the game, and it just shows the air. And I'm like, this is gorgeous. Like the mountains around it and all that. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful game. I'm excited to go. But there's just something about watching the University of Notre Dame football team, the most historic, iconic football program in history, playing, in my opinion, the most historic, iconic football stadium in history. I just think there's something about that there's just no way I would miss that one. As long as I have, breath to breathe, that would be air to breathe. That would be something that I would love to do, even though I think the other one's going to be a great one. So I'm going to buy that one, hold that one. And then he also said, Trev, he's like, I can't even think of a third road game, which I get. I think that, obviously you've got the Syracuse game, the Purdue game, the North Carolina game, and then playing Navy in Gillette. Of those three, if you have never made it to a game in Chapel Hill, go to that game. It's a pretty cool little stadium, and it's a beautiful campus. So if you've never been to a road game in Chapel Hill, go. It's a pretty cool little deal. That would be my third. But I'd buy the Winnebago to Green Bay, and then I would hold the other one. But for me, Trev, I'm actually buying both, literally. I'm going to the Wisconsin game, and I've already bought my flight to go to Provo. So I'm doing both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I will probably buy going out to Provo. Simply because I don't really have the affinity like some other NFL or former NFL fans about Green Bay Stadium. Like, I think it's cool. I think the Lambeau Leap is dope. I don't really have a dog in the fight, though, of like favorite or iconic NFL stadiums. I think they're fine. I'd much rather go to college stadiums. But I also just think that the Notre Dame BYU game is going to be the better game. I'd rather be in attendance for that one. That's kind of
not
my
debatable.
Separator. No.
That one's not debatable, in my opinion. If the first game is closer than the second game, one of two things happened. Either Notre Dame played really bad in the first game, or BYU plays really bad in the second game.
Mm-hmm.
Agree completely.
Buy-sell hold the most impactful unit in 26. The offensive line, the defensive line, or the receivers?
Oh, I'd literally buy-sell hold it in the order you put it in there, Law Dog. Truthfully, that's the order that I'd put it in. There is no more important unit to anything in college football this year than the offensive line. I'm going to respond to a question in the chat. Somebody wanted to know the context of the video. So basically what happened a couple weeks ago, and I did a segment about this. Trev and I did a segment about this. Was it last Wednesday or was it the Wednesday before? I forget which. We did it during one of the weekly roundup, I believe, segments. But basically, Notre Dame and CJ Carr put out a video of CJ giving all the offensive linemen Bose headphones as part of his NIL deal. And you could see the camera angle was from behind the room, and you could see the first row was in the middle was Joe Wadding, and to his right and left immediately was Devin Houston to his right and Christopher Tarrick to his left. And then to the left of Christopher Tarrick was Styles Prescott, and to the right of Devin Houston was Matty Augustine. And then in the back row, you had Karam Herron in the middle, and to the right of him, I don't remember being able to see to the left of him much, but to the right of him and the right was Peter Jones, who plays guard, and then to the right of him was Owen Strebing, who plays tackle. So there's already looking like, okay, they're lined up as center guard tackle, which would make sense in a meeting room for the offensive line. The middle row was Ashton Craig in the middle, and to his right, Sullivan Absher, and then to his right, Kirby Lambert. To the left was Anthony Knapp, to his immediate left, and then outside of Anthony Knapp was Will Black, getting people to think the potential of Anthony Knapp moving to guard, Will Black moving to left tackle, Kirby Lambert kicking out to right tackle, and then Sullivan Absher moving back over to right guard where he has played before. That's the context behind it. But I'll say it again, and I'll mean it all year. If there's one group whose performance will have the most to say on Notre Dame winning a championship in 2026, it will first and foremost be the offensive line. The second unit that will have that impact will be the defensive line. And the third will probably, in my opinion, be the quarterback.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why I will buy-sell hold in this order.
Yep. Same order. Look, the trench play is going to be very close. I'm buying offensive line, defensive line. We've spent ample time on this show talking about the importance of being stout in the trenches in both offense and defense. But if Notre Dame's offense is going to be what we think that it's going to be, you need the offensive line to be there. Defense, I don't have as much of concern because you still have your entire linebacker rotation coming back, and 4 of your 5 starting defensive backs from last season are coming back as well. That being said, I don't want to diminish how important the defensive line is going to be, but yeah, I like these 3, but offensive line I'm buying by a mile. Switch gears, talk about some movies here from Law Dog. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Bill Murray movies, Will Ferrell movies, or Adam Sandler movies?
Well, I'm going to show my age. We're both going to probably show our age on this one because I have a feeling you're going to be the opposite direction of this, Trev. I'm going to buy Bill Murray movies because, again, I'm a kid of the 80s. I'm thinking Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Third one was not great. I'm thinking Stripes, Spies Like Us. With actually, no, that wasn't Bill Murray. That was Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. Caddyshack. I mean, there were so many great movies in there. The next one is probably a little tougher. I probably would hold Will Ferrell movies and sell Adam Sandler movies, but they're kind of similar to me. I would probably, I would probably lean towards holding Will Ferrell movies just because, honestly, but a lot of my favorite Will Ferrell movies with Will Ferrell in it, Will Ferrell was not my favorite character. He was not my favorite character in Step Brothers. I don't like a lot of the movies where he was the driver of it. I mean, even Talladega Nights, his character was great, but I think John C. Reilly stole the show in that one as well. I think any movie I've seen with John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell in it, I've found John C. Reilly funnier than Will Ferrell. It's just kind of how I feel about it. So, I would probably, and Adam Sandler, that one's torn because some of his movies I absolutely love. And some of his movies I think Billy Madison is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. Like, I just hated that movie. It's got a couple iconic scenes, but overall I hated that movie. But I love Happy Gilmore. I'm quite fond of Mr. Deeds. I thought that was really good. Wasn't a big fan of, what was the one where the little kid, Big Daddy, wasn't a big fan of that. Wasn't a big fan of Click. I thought Waterboy was tremendous. So I thought Grown Ups. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna hold Adam Sandler and sell Will Ferrell because now that I think about it, some of my favorite Will Ferrell movies weren't even Will Ferrell movies. It was like Old School, where that's a movie Will Ferrell was in. I wouldn't call it a Will Ferrell movie. So the only Will Ferrell has two, in my opinion, two great movies, in my view. And this isn't going to be popular, but Talladega Nights and Anchorman are classic comedies. I'm not a huge fan of the rest of the Will Ferrell stuff. Like Step Brothers had its moments, but like he wasn't great in it. I thought John C. Reilly, I actually thought the dad and John C. Reilly both were more funny in that movie than Will Ferrell was. And his brother, I thought, was pretty good in that movie as well. I hated Little Nicky. Somebody just put that in there. But you start thinking of Adam Sandler. He's got Waterboy. He's got Happy Gilmore. He's got somebody just put in there 50 First Dates, which was great. Blended. Have you ever seen Blended with Drew Barrymore? That was a great, there's a lot more enjoyable Adam Sandler movies where they're just not dumb funny. They're funny, but they're actually decent movies. And I would rather watch Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore in a movie than Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of where I'm at. So, yeah, Wedding Singer's another one. I'm going to have to hold Adam Sandler and sell Will Ferrell now that I think more through some of these Adam Sandler ones. Billy Madison always just bothers me, and I just dislike that movie a lot. But he's got way more good movies than where Will Ferrell does, in my opinion, where he's the lead. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to buy Bill Murray movies because I just think the quality of movies that he makes are better. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm proud of you, Trent. I mean, you're a late 90s kid. Guy. A lot of his stuff was okay. I'm like, it's a proud papa moment, man. I'm just like so happy to hear that right now.
The debate is what you were talking about. It's between Adam Sandler and Will Ferrell. And my only hesitation with selling Will Ferrell is for his character Ron Burgundy, and I do like Elf. That's one of my more. It's one of those unorthodox Christmas movies. That's not just about some little kid that you have to try to convince that Santa's real, and it's away from the beaten path which I appreciate. But outside of that, all of his other characters are the exact same person. Like Brennan Huff is who he was in Talladega Nights, just with a Southern accent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like they're the same guy. Adam Sandler, I think, just has I like his characters better in movies. Uncut Gems, I thought was a.
Can I say something about what you did? Because I think your point is great, Trev. Here's what ultimately led me to pick Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler was the same exact way early in his career. Mm-hmm. All his characters were the same. I felt like he grew into different types of characters as he got older. You know what I mean? Like he's got more variety in who he is in different movies than like early on, Big Daddy, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, all the same guy.
Yep.
But then we get into Blended, we get into Wedding Singer, we get into, you know what I mean? Like some of those different types of movies. The movie he did with Jennifer Aniston, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie, but his character was very different in that movie than he was in others, and he was still funny.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great point. Like Adam Sandler eventually started to be able to play more diverse comedy roles where Will Ferrell is literally the same guy in every movie he plays. Even Elf, he was the same guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's just it was
just PG.
Yeah.
Like he was the same guy. Yeah. It was just for kids. I mean, and the argument you were making about other people stealing the show. I mean, he was good in Anchorman, but you could argue that Christina Applegate played better. Paul Rudd was a better character acted. So
Paul Rudd was my favorite character in that movie.
He was Brian Fantana. Yeah.
60% of the time it works every time. Yes. Paul Rudd is a notorious scene stealer.
Yeah.
Like he is notorious for like being in other people's movies, and you're just like, I liked him better in that movie than I did.
Yep.
You know. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. So I'm buying Bill Murray, holding Adam Sandler, selling Will Ferrell.
Yeah. Good stuff. Very good stuff.
From Touchdown Car Bomb 3. Buy, sell, hold. The SEC will get 4 teams in the playoffs for the next 2 years, but not win a championship either year. I think these are separate, I'm assuming.
They were all kind of bunched together, but we can do them separately as I'm kind of reading this. But yes, so the SEC will get 4 teams in the playoffs for the next 2 years, but will not win a championship either year. Well, yeah, I mean, since Notre Dame's going to win the championship the next 2 years,
bang,
sure.
Bang.
No, I'm gonna sell this. I think Notre Dame and the SEC will win the next 2 championships. That's where I'm gonna be.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? No, I'm gonna buy it. I think they're going to try to dominate the field once again, but it's just to load up their chances of winning a natty. I think it's either going to go to Notre Dame or the Big Ten again. I really do.
The next 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I will say this, Trev. I think there are more teams ascending in the SEC than there are in the Big Ten right now.
Sure.
I don't count Ohio State as ascending. I think Indiana is still part of that ascending group. I think USC's ascension is moderate. I think Oregon is a still ascending program, and that's it. I think every other program is either ascending down or not a title contender, even the ones that are ascending up. I think Minnesota, PJ Fleck is doing some nice things in Minnesota, but they're never a team that's going to compete for a title. Washington is bouncing back, but they're not going to be a title team under Jed Fish. When I look at the SEC, you always got to look at Kirby as a threat. You know, and you've got to look at Texas to me as ascending. I mean, like their down year was a 10-3 year where they had like 4 top 25 wins. They were in the semifinals 2 of the previous 3 years. I think LSU is a much better position now to win it all than they were a couple of years ago. I think Texas A&M is ascending. I think Auburn is a team that's shown they're capable of winning a championship if they have the right pieces in place. There's just so many more teams in the SEC that are capable of winning compared to the Big Ten. Even though the Big Ten right now is the better program or the better conference, they're still very top heavy to me. And I just think that the odds are that I think an SEC team will win the next couple of years. Who that'll be? If I had to bet right now, I'd say Texas would be my bet right now. I think the next 5 years, Trev, the next 3 years, I think the 5 best teams in college football the next 3 years, let's say 3 years, will be Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, and either Georgia, Alabama, or LSU. Pick one of those SEC teams. I think those will be the 5 best teams in college football the next year. So the odds are 2 Big Ten, 2 SEC, one team that's independent. I just think one of those SEC teams breaks through the next couple of years unless Notre Dame goes back-to-back. Because I'm in a good mood on this February 24th. So there you go.
There we go. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Keon Keeley will play 60% of the defensive snaps, mostly on first and second down.
Sell. I think 2027, sure. 2026, sell. He will be the 3rd highest snap getter at defensive end, barring injury.
Agreed. And then buy, sell, hold again from touchdown car bomb 3. At least one offensive lineman will get hurt for a minimum 3 games this year, but will enter the playoffs with a fully healthy lineup.
I don't love the notion of predicting injuries. I just don't like it. But if we're going to look at this honestly for the way the question is asked, I don't think it was asked in any kind of an inappropriate manner at all. It's a very fair question. Joe Rudolph has been the O-line coach for 3 years, and in each year he's had at least one starting offensive lineman miss at least 3 games.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming Joe Rudolph for that. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. You had your first year, you had Zeke Carell went down with an injury, and Rocco Spindler went down with an injury. They missed the last 3 games of the season, plus the bowl game. You look at 2024, obviously Billy Strouth missed more than 3 games. Ashton Craig missed 13 games. And then 2025, obviously, Billy Strouth missed the last several games. I'm not even counting Charles Jagasaw because I'm simply looking at guys that started the season. Take away Jagasaw, who got hurt in fall camp 1 year, then in a summer trip another year. Just guys that got hurt in season. So it'd be hard for me to pick a guy that is in there. Yeah. And by the way, Andrew Gilmore brought this up. I absolutely, when you talk about the top 5 teams of college football, Texas A&M is in the conversation of one of the teams that could be in there. And if anything, they might be able to bump out one of the Big Ten teams. But yes, what Elko did this past year, with their ability to get proven portal players, but Elko is also really trying to build through high school recruiting first and foremost, and they're doing a very good job of it. So yes, Andrew, good reminder, A&M needs to be in that conversation as well in the debate for who the next few years, who the 5 best teams are going to be. Yes, that's a good call. I just feel like of the teams I mentioned, they still have the most to prove.
Agreed. Because I think out of all the teams that you mentioned that I brought up too, like there's been multiple years of success. Like they've done it in back-to-back years. I mean, got teams like Texas, Ohio State, agreed completely. But
they've won playoff games.
Right.
They've all won playoff games. Yeah.
Yep. Texas A&M, you could argue, yes, it was still year 1 of Mike Elko, but you could argue, especially by how they started off the season, they underachieved down the stretch. And then this past year, they beat Notre Dame inside of Notre Dame Stadium, and then they were over the course of the season, had their largest comeback in school history against a 3-9 team, and then lost 10-3 at home in the first round of the playoffs. So you got to see them replicate success in back-to-back seasons, but I agree completely.
Yep. And now Touchdown Car Bomb is a new member, Trev. So we appreciate you.
Go.
So we say join the board, and then so you can put them questions in. He signed up within the last week. First buy, so hold. He's got some questions, so we appreciate you very much. He's got some more.
Buy, sell, hold. Jaden Greathouse goes for 750 yards and 6 touchdowns in the regular season.
I'm gonna sell that. I think Jaden Greathouse is more than capable of doing that. But I need to see Jaden Greathouse go through a full season healthy first. And it's not just about last year. He also got a little banged up as a freshman. I need to see CJ Carr be more willing to throw to the slot more frequently in the regular season than he did last year as well. those are the reasons why. He's got the talent to do so, no question. I just need to see them target the slot more, and I need to see him stay healthy. But I will not be shocked if Jaden Greathouse has that kind of season. But I wouldn't bet on it, and so basically that means I can't buy it. What say you, Trev?
We see that. We see that the same, man. I mean, look, I love Jaden Greathouse. Maybe not as much as some other salty friends in the Irish Breakdown community, but he's one of those players that, and I'll pay respect to every question that we get about him, but I'm done trying to predict stack lines for him because I just don't know. In the same light, it would not shock me if Jaden Greathouse ended the regular season with 40 catches for 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. That legitimately, that wouldn't surprise me. But it also wouldn't have surprised me last year, and he had 4 catches for like 70 yards. And so I really just don't know. And I feel like I can't do it justice without it. So I'm going to sell it as well. Again, fully capable, has all the talent to do so, but it's kind of been the conversation now during his time in South Bend. Hopefully this is the year that it comes to fruition. And then buy, sell, hold. Kedron Young and Aeneas Williams combined for 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns in the regular season.
If average of 900 each. Yeah, I guess I'll buy it, Trevor, because I don't know that that J1 Sider is going to go with more than 2 guys. And I think that 1,800 rushing yards in 12 games is, it's a pretty good number, but not an elite number. It's 150 yards a game. Like, I think this team's going to average well over 180 yards a game rushing this year. Some of that will be mop up, blowout reps, but yeah, I want to sell because I would rather there be 3 guys kind of getting the touches this year, throwing Nolan James or one of the freshmen in there. But if they go with what J1 Sider's always said he does, which is 2 backs, then yeah, that tracks. I feel more comfortable with the 15 touchdowns. That's actually one I don't have a problem with. I mean, the 2 tailbacks last year combined for over 30.
Yeah.
Just rushing. Actually, no, not rushing because, rushing. They were at 29, correct? Yeah. Didn't Jeremiah have 18 and then Jadarian had 11?
Yes, sir.
And then total touchdowns, they were well over 30 because Jeremiah had 21 and Jadarian had 15. So, yeah, it's 36. I mean, that's less than half of what they had last year. That one I buy. It's the 1,800 yards that I was a little bit more skeptical on.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna buy touchdowns and sell yards. Like there's so many just ingredients that kind of goes into so many factors that goes into the 1,800 rushing yards. Again, if this offense is what we think that it is, I don't know how many fourth quarters Kedron Young or Aeneas is going to be getting touches in, which a chunk of that could go to Nolan James. J1 Sider J1 Sider definitely could play 3. Got to see it first. So not, going to bet the mortgage on seeing that, but that's a possibility. And if CJ Carr is going to have the season we think, I could see rushing yards not being as big of a factor as they've been in previous seasons. So I'm selling the 1,800 rushing. Now, if we're talking like total yards, considering like Aeneas's pass catching ability, that would be an easy buy. But if it's strictly rushing yards, I'm going to sell it. And then CJ Carr sits in the fourth quarter in at least 7 games this year, giving the freshman, counting Hebert as a freshman since he redshirted, ample amounts of reps for next season.
7 of the 12. I lean towards buying this, but I just want to walk through the schedule here real quick, Trev. Wisconsin, so he's saying, are we talking entire fourth? Are we taking this as entire fourth or comes out at some point in time in the fourth? You pick.
Let's say he comes out like the majority of the fourth quarter, because I don't want to count it if like he sits in the fourth quarter, but he just doesn't play the final offensive possession. So like the majority of time,
we're talking multiple drives in the fourth quarter for the backups. Okay.
Yes.
For sure, no brainers. Rice, Purdue, Stanford, Navy, Boston College. 5 for sure. Then you got to go Wisconsin, Michigan State, North Carolina, Syracuse as potential ones as well. So 2 of those they would have to. So I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
Yeah, it's a buy for me as well.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Between one of those 4 teams that you listed off, that's a buy. 2 of those 4, excuse me. From double bogey, buy, sell, hold, CJ Carr will throw for over 3,250 yards and 35 touchdowns.
Honestly, I think he does that in the regular season. Like the yards wise. You throw in the postseason into this, then both of them become a buys for me. Yeah. Here's part of the reason why. I think Notre Dame's going to have more playmakers at receiver this year that can do things after the catch to get touchdowns than what they had last year. So I think the 3,250 yards, that's 270.8 yards per game, Trev, to get to that number. I think he'll be there.
In the
35
season?
touchdowns regular season. Yep. Because 3,250 for, let's say they play 14 games. That's it. They get beat in the semis. That's only 232 yards per game. That's basically where he was this year if you take out the Syracuse game. That's actually less than where he was. So I'll buy that one. I mean, look, I could be wrong here, but I think there was a couple blowouts that happened later in the year that kept CJ from getting to 3,000 yards this past season. And, he passed for 2,741, so he's 259 yards short of it. I think that the fact that he only threw for 49 yards against Syracuse hurt that number quite a bit, in my opinion. And then I think the fact that they were up so big on Purdue, he only threw 223 yards, but he only had 12 attempts. Like, if just one of those games is more normal, I think he's very close to over 3,000, if not over. So I'll say over the course of the entire season, I think he gets to both of those. The 35 touchdowns in the regular season might be a little bit tougher to get to, unless we're going to count all touchdowns. That might be, because he was at what, 20, was he at 27 this year, Trev? He had, 27 in the regular season. I think 32 easy, regular season, rushing and passing easy. 35 might be a little bit tougher. But overall, I think I'm going to buy this, even if we're just talking regular season. Through the course of a whole season, that's an easy buy for me. Through the course of the regular season, I'll buy it, but the touchdowns would be a little bit tougher get for me in the regular season.
Yeah, regular season. If we're talking regular season, I'm selling both of these. If it's the season in its entirety, I would buy. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at with this one. Then someone other than Aeneas Williams will lead the team in rushing yards.
I'm going to sell that. I mean, it's possible. Trevor, you talked about it earlier. Keidron Young could certainly do that, and I think Nolan James could do that.
Yeah. But
I still think Aeneas is the number one guy going into the season, and there's nothing he has done to make me think, he's going to get beat out. I need to see a lot more from those other guys. And so right now, I still have him there if I'm predicting. Now, you and I talked about a scenario where, Keidron has more rushing yards and Aeneas has more total yards, but I got to see it from Keidron first. I want to see him healthy this spring. I want to see him good to go and all that kind of stuff first. Right now, I think Aeneas is the top dog going into that room. This will be a more interesting question. Let me rephrase, because I made it seem like it's not interesting. It's a very good question. It'll be even more interesting of a question on April 27th when we do that Monday buy, sell, hold after the spring game. And we've now evaluated the whole spring and see how that goes. So good question now. Will be even more intriguing then. But as of right now, pre-spring, Aeneas is the guy that I project to go into the starting lineup and become the leading rusher, barring injury. So yeah, I'm gonna sell that one. It's possible.
We see that.
I'm selling it.
Yep, we see that the same. Let's kind of widen the scope a little bit, talk more big picture college football. Buy, sell, hold, Ohio State will reclaim the Big Ten title.
Reclaim it from when?
2020, I guess.
I mean, like, Ohio State hasn't won the Big Ten championship since literally 2020, correct?
Yep.
Hold on a second. 2021 Big Ten championship because football. Because
that was like Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan won it in 21. They beat Iowa. And then 22, Michigan won again. They beat Purdue. 24, Michigan beat Iowa. Or 23, Michigan beat Iowa. So Michigan won it 3 years in a row. 24, Oregon won it. 25, Indiana won it. Ohio State's only even played in the Big Ten championship once in the last 5 years. So I'm going to sell it because I don't even know that they can reclaim it. The team that could reclaim it is the team I think will win it. I predict Oregon, to me, is the best team in the Big Ten going into next year. And I would probably say Ohio State's number probably 2 or 3. I'm still debating between Indiana and Ohio State. As far as because obviously Indiana's my number 1 because you guys know my rule. But who I'm ranking number 1 in the preseason is different than who I think will finish there at the end of the season. That is more up for grabs. I think Ohio State's in the conversation, but dude, they got to show me they can get to the Big Ten championship game, more than once in the last 5 years, right? And it was last year, and they lost to Indiana. So I think Oregon and Ohio State is who I project to be in the Big Ten championship this year, and I think Oregon wins it, unless Dan Lanning chokes again in a big game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing going under Dan Lanning, at least he's already won one. I mean, shoot, Dan Lanning has won a Big Ten title more recently than Ohio State has. I mean, but right. I'm going to sell this one because I don't even know if they play for it, let alone reclaim it. So yeah, it's a sell. I mean, from what we've seen from Ryan Day, he has sights set on bigger things, and I'm sure fans would rather see a national championship than a Big Ten championship. I could be wrong
because it's kind of sad, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've
also do both?
Agreed. I mean, I've seen some Ohio State fans talk about how they would trade a natty to never lose to Michigan again. Like I think that's a little skewed, but
it's stupid.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're saying stupid, Trevor. I know that there's people that think that, and I think that thought is stupid. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, we're on the same page.
From Double Bogey, buy one, sell one, hold one for making baked ziti. I'm making it today for a snowy Sunday. So option 1 is beef only. Option 2 is sausage only. And option 3 is a combo of beef and sausage.
Well, I'd buy beef only because I prefer beef sauce. I'm not a huge sausage guy. If I was going to do one of those other two, I would go combo beef and sausage, and then my third option would be sausage only. So buy beef only, hold combo of beef and sausage, and then sell sausage only. But that's just because I'm not a big sausage fan. My wife would probably go the exact opposite direction I did if it was up to her to make it. I make the sauce in our home, so we do the beef sauce. I think she's Italian. Her dad's Italian. She grew up having it more so as sausage. So I think she'd prefer it either way. She likes it either way, but I think if she prefer, I think it's probably a sausage. What say you, Trev?
I'm going to buy 3, hold 1, sell 2. I think is probably how I would go. Yeah. Yeah. I don't
you
really think
Irishman 7114 see that the same, right? Isn't that what you said?
Yep.
Buy 3, hold 2, sell. Hold 1, sell 2.
Yep. Getting into part 3 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got buy, sell, hold today, and getting us kicked off in part 3 is Joe Alt Superfan Ain't No 6 Like 76.
Whew. Also a new member, just great name, by the way.
I love it. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame beats Indiana in the playoffs, solidifying Marcus Freeman as the only undefeated coach against Signetti.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Sure, that sounds good to me. I'll buy that. Because if we're talking Signetti at Indiana, he's only lost 2 games, right? I mean, he lost to Ryan Day in 2024 and then Notre Dame in 2024, right? He hasn't lost anybody else, right? They only lost one regular season game in 2024, correct?
Yeah,
That's
they were
Ohio
11
State.
and 1. Yeah.
And then they got their payback against Ohio State this year. So, and this year they were 16-0. So, yeah, I'll buy that. Sounds good to me. Sounds very good to me. Although, if Notre Dame wins it all, there's no concern about, oh, is Notre Dame or Indiana better? It's like, well, we beat you in 2024, and we also have a title. There's nothing you've done that we haven't done. You know, so, yeah. But I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that very much.
For sure. I'll buy it as well. Why not? Then buy so hold. Joe Alt is the best left tackle Notre Dame has seen the last 10 years, maybe even of all time, dare I say. Will be a future Hall of Famer.
Well, I'm not shocked that Joe Alt superfan thinks they answer to that. But if we're talking last 10 years, Trev, that's from 2016 to now. I don't disagree with that.
Agreed.
I think Joe Alt was better than Mike McGlinchey and Liam Eichenberg, who are the two best left tackles that I would be in the conversation with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I buy the first part. I'm at the minimum, I'm holding the second part. Does he have the potential to be a future Hall of Famer? Yeah, dude's got to stay healthy and stay on the field first, like for him to be considered a Hall of Famer, and then has to start stacking really good season after really good season. The potential's there, but that's
because Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson were dudes like out of the gate. Yeah. They were Pro Bowlers as rookies.
Yeah.
And that's back when the Pro Bowl meant something. Like you couldn't be a quarterback that barely threw over 1,000 yards and had more picks than touchdowns and make the Pro Bowl as a rookie when they were making it. I'm just saying. How's he been when he's played, Trev? Have you seen it all? I haven't watched.
Are you talking about Shedeur? Or you're talking
no,
Joe Alt?
Joe. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I didn't know if he's been good when he's played.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like kind of like what we've talked about with Billy Schrauth at Notre Dame. When he's on the field, he's dominant. It's just the stay on the field part is the especially with a season as long as the NFL. Because Joe over the course of the season, he was somebody that like tried to come back after getting like a grade 3 ankle sprain or something, and then it needed surgery because he came back too early. So definitely hard to keep a guy like that off the field, but the Chargers' offensive line is significantly better with him there. Now it's just stay there.
This is one of the best responses we've ever seen in the chat. Pete Weber goes, we talking Pro Bowlers? How we talking Pro Bowlers and not mentioning your boy Pete? Very well done, my dude. Different type of Pro Bowler. That's a Pro Bowler. We're talking about Pro Bowlers. It's the inflection tells us it's two different sports, but that was very well done, my man. Very, very well done. Very well done.
And then another one from Joe Alt Superfan, buy, sell, hold. From my history tank enthusiast, Sherman 76, T-3485, or a Panzer 4H.
So what's interesting about this submission is he didn't just go general. He gave us the upgrades of the different tanks, which I found fascinating. The T-3485 was the later World War II edition of the Russian T-34. The Panzer 4H is, again, one of the upgraded models of the Panzer. And then the Sherman 76, basically, it's the Sherman tank when they put a bigger caliber weapon on it. Because one of the knocks on the Sherman tank early on, they obviously had a ton of them, and it was, was good mobility, decent armor, pretty good armor, but it had a less firepower. So then they put a bigger. The 76 is basically refers to, if I'm correct on this, if my research is correct on this, refers to the upgraded power, right? It's the bigger gun that they put on the tank, and that obviously had a lot of success. I'm an American. I love America. I'm always going, and the Sherman won the war, right? I still think that for the most part, the tanks that win battles are the ones that have the better numbers and the better commanders, right? But there's obviously something to the quality of it. I think the Sherman tank was a great weapon for the United States. And then as they got more firepower late in the war, they became far more dominant. So I would buy the Sherman. I'd hold the Panzer. I'm going to sell the Russian tank because I just don't know enough about how it did in battle. That's the one I'm not as familiar with. So, yeah, that's where I'd have to go.
Same order over here. I would buy the Sherman. Later upgrades in World War II for the U.S. played a huge role. I mean, upgrading you're talking about going from like Like P-40s were a good plane, but going from those to like P-51 Mustangs was huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
upgrades for tanks were huge. So yeah, I mean, I'm buying the Sherman. Probably the same order as you. I don't know too much about the T-34s. That was the one name up here that I didn't recognize.
It's interesting because I mean, obviously I know a lot of the battles that the Russians fought in World War II, but I don't know a lot about the weaponry they used in World War II. I haven't studied that much, to be completely honest with you. Should probably be something I should do one of these days, but I just don't know enough about it. I did like a little research on it before, but I was like, yeah, this is like kind of all new to me. I'd have to do a lot more research on it. Where the other two, I mean, we know a lot about the famous battles between the Shermans and the Panzers. Early on, obviously the Shermans didn't win nearly as many, especially, early on in North Africa. But as they upgraded the Sherman and increased the armor, increased the firepower, because basically early on they just won with numbers, because we could just produce at such a greater number than what the Germans could produce. I mean, it was unbelievable. There was no tank that was built more than the Sherman, and it was like tenfold more than what anything else, which is ultimately was a big part of that. But yeah, they needed more firepower, and they got more firepower as we went along. And Chicago Irish says that this is exactly what I'm talking about. Because the problem for the Panzer was the U.S. could produce 20 Shermans to one Panzer, and that's exactly the point. It was, and also they had, and this is a conversation we were having the other day. They had one of the greatest tank commanders ever, if not the greatest tank commander ever, in George Patton, and that was a big part of it as well. So, as I said, it's kind of like you study the Civil War. Why was Ulysses S. Grant more successful than other generals? Did the technology change? No, he was a better, strategery. He was a better strategist. He was more aggressive, but not like there was this problem with the generals in the Civil War for the Union, in that some were ultra conservative and some were too aggressive, and they both were major flaws. Where I felt Grant's success was that perfect in between of knowing when to go for it and when to not. And we've talked on a lot of the show about the Battle of Midway, Trev, and I love that the new Midway portrayed this, which is there were some in that said, hey, look, we have a chance to really put the Japanese away. Let's go on the attack. And they're like, no, we had a great victory today. Let's not run the risk, especially when the Yorktown got hit the second time and eventually sunk. It was like, look, let's not turn this great victory into something that it doesn't need to be. Because what the Japanese were trying to do, and again, I love that the movie showed this, because the original Midway movie didn't show this. The Japanese they were out of the carrier fight, but they still had a lot of battleships that they thought that they wanted to get the carriers close enough to the battleship to then do damage to the carriers. And obviously they weren't able to do that, because they only had, so there were 6 carriers that attacked attacked Pearl Harbor. But the Zuikaku and the Shokaku were getting repaired, so they only had 4 of those carriers for the fight in Midway. The U.S. only had 3 carriers, but they were able to put 3 out in that big wave, and then they got the 4th one in another wave. But it's like knowing when to go for it and when to fall back. So a great commander, a great admiral, a great general is key to the success of and look, the Panzer became far less effective later in the war when Rommel got taken out, not by the Americans, but by Hitler. And so again, it still comes down to the strategy and the commanders of it. But early on, I would have gone with the Panzer over the Sherman, but I think the Sherman by the end, with all the upgrades, was better. Like Trev, you brought it up. The Zero was a far better fighter than what the Americans had at the beginning of World War II. Very quickly that changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because the problem is we couldn't take advantage of their lack of armor, because had almost no armor whatsoever, the Zeros, because it was so much faster and so much easier to maneuver that we couldn't shoot them down as effectively. Very quickly, the American fighter planes became far more effective because they were faster, and they could, even if they couldn't match it, they could take more of a beating than what the Zero could take. I mean, you get any shots on the Zero, it's done, because it had no armor. And so the technology that happened very quickly from 42 to 44, sped up the end. I mean, ultimately the U.S. and the Allies were eventually going to win. Once the U.S. got involved, they were going to win. The question was, how long was it going to take? And the reason it went as quick, and I wouldn't even call it quick, but the reason it went the time it did is because the technological advances made between the British and the U.S., because there were some things the British had great engines in their fighter planes early on. And the U.S. got some of those ideas. Like, what was the Rolls-Royce?
The Spitfires
was that the one
nuts.
early on? Didn't they have a Rolls-Royce engine early on?
Yeah.
The Spitfire? Yeah. They just couldn't mass produce them the way that we could.
Yeah.
And that's what changed things a lot. But yeah, the Spitfire was a very, very, very impactful one. So, yeah. And Chris Black Irish says, we finished our World War II discussion. But he says fuel was a big factor. Once the Allied forces took North Africa, the German military was scrambling. As we said, that's partly why they went into Russia originally. The problem was that they went beyond the original goal because Hitler just couldn't help himself. The original goal of going into Russia was to take the oil fields, but he had to have Stalingrad. And I mean, I'm happy that they lost and got defeated because that was an evil empire. But you always look back and say, what would have happened differently if this would have happened, if that would have happened? You know, like those conversations are always very, very fascinating.
Another one from Joe Alt, superfan. Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame season will go down in similar fashion to Florida State in 2013 with little to no competitive games up until the title game.
I'm going to sell that. I think that Miami especially will be better in 2026 than what Clemson was in 2013. That's kind of why. I mean, Clemson was really the only good ACC team that year. I think NC State had a decent team that year, Trev, if I remember correctly. Let me see here. 2013 Florida State schedule. Because Florida was down that year a little bit, but they played Maryland was ranked 25th. Clemson was ranked 3rd. They were good that year. Miami was ranked 7th, but I don't think Miami was as good as people thought they were. They were ranked high early in the year. I think they were a little bit of a paper tiger. They beat number 12 Florida, and that vaulted them up the rankings a little bit, and then they lost 4 of their last 6 games and finished unranked. I don't think they were quite that good. You know, they just benefited from playing a Florida team early in the year. Well, that number 12 Florida team finished the year 4-8. So, like, the win that vaulted Miami into the rankings was a fool's gold. Now, Clemson was legit good that year, Trev. They beat number 5 Georgia that year. They lost to South Carolina by 2 touchdowns. And if you remember, they had that great Orange Bowl win over Clemson. But they lost by 2 touchdowns to the 2 best teams they played. Minimum 2 touchdowns, because Spurrier, that South Carolina, I think that was one of Spurrier's. Was that a Spurrier team? I think that was a Spurrier team. That was one of his last great years. Yeah, went 11-2, finished number 4 that year. Clemson was really the only really good team that they played. I mean, Duke wasn't very good. They beat them in the ACC championship. They beat Auburn by 3. So I just think that SMU, BYU, and Miami are just going to be better than the top 3 teams. I think they'll have a game or 2. One game I think they'll have that'll be decided by less than 10 points. Another game may be decided by more than 10 points, but it'll be like a USC 10-point win, like they had this past year against USC, where it was a closer game, and then Notre Dame pulled away late. I could see a couple of that. But I think Notre Dame is going to have 2 games this year that I would look at and say, that's going to be a really competitive game, 4-quarter game. I think a lot of Notre Dame fans are thinking they're just going to go out to Provo and just beat BYU by 30. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they could win convincingly, but I'm not going to predict. It's like, remember last year this time, Trev, the whole summer, Notre Dame's going to beat Miami by double digits. They're going to beat Miami by double digits. We said, no, guys, I'm not predicting that. I think Notre Dame's going to win, but I'm definitely not predicting a blowout because this is going to be a good football team. I think we're seeing the same underrating of some of their opponents in 2026. Like, I think people think Miami was a fluke last year. Guys, they were in a 10-2 team the year before and had the number 1 scoring offense in the country in 2024. And honestly, probably should have been in the playoffs in 2024. So I think they're going to be legit good. I think BYU is going to be a legit top 15 to 20 team. And I think SMU is going to be a top 20 team. I don't think they just roll through those three teams the way that Florida State did.
Well, and I agree with everything you're saying about the regular season, but I'm also selling that no competitive games up until the title game. I mean, guys, the playoff landscape alone completely changes this conversation.
I think that the premise of what I think he's asking is more to do with that's what Florida State's path was, because they didn't have a playoff back then. It went straight from ACC title game to championship game. So I took that way. I didn't necessarily take this playoff. If you're talking playoff, Trev, I would agree with you. I just kind of think he was more referring to like regular season's a cakewalk.
Just up
it's
until
kind
the
of
postseason.
more.
I mean, sure. I mean,
that's kind of how I took it. Yeah.
Regardless, I'm selling. I don't think that Notre Dame schedule's a gauntlet, and I don't think it's as easy as what everybody's wanting everybody to believe that it is. So I'm selling regardless. Another one from Joe Alt. Hypothetical matchups for Notre Dame to host in a playoff game: USC, Alabama, Michigan. Buy one, sell one, hold one.
Ooh, you go first on this one, Trev. I'm very curious to hear your answer on this. So basically, what, if I'm correct, he's asking if we could pick either one of those three teams, what are we buying, selling, and holding for who we would like Notre Dame to host in a playoff game this year?
Yeah, I'm buying USC by a country mile. I think that'd be hilarious. They threw their temper tantrum. They no longer have to play Notre Dame. Their biggest thing was having to go up to South Bend and play Notre Dame when it's chilly outside. And now, instead of wanting to play Notre Dame at the end of November, you now have to play them closer to Christmas than you did before. I would love that. I think that environment would be crazy, especially a year removed from, not even a year removed from ending that historic rivalry. So I'm buying USC. I'll hold Bama. I understand it's kind of the monster that Notre Dame hasn't really slain yet. Haven't slayed that dragon, but this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama. It's not. And so from a program perspective, I think it would be cool, but I can't in one hand sit and say that the committee can't give them the benefit of the doubt because this is no longer Nick Saban's Alabama. And then if Notre Dame beats them in the playoffs, it's like, we just beat Bama, conquered that beast that got us in 2020 and 2012. It's like, okay, well, it's also not Nick Saban's Alabama. So both statements are true in both different scenarios, but I would still hold them. Then I'll sell Michigan. I don't know if I would get a whole lot. I know they won the championship in 23, but I'm going to sell Michigan. I wouldn't be too crazy hyped up about that beating them in the playoffs. So that's probably the order that I would go.
So this is why I'm curious. So I wanted you to go first because I was not sure of where you're going to go. I really thought you were going to talk about Michigan because you're always talking about how you want Notre Dame to play Michigan again. So I think that's very fascinating. Very fascinating. I would prefer. I'm similar to what you are. I would prefer Alabama. That would be my buy, just because I don't want USC to even be good enough to make the playoffs. But
that's fair.
Your scenario of you really screwed yourself, USC. Because you could have played Notre Dame late in the year at home at the end of the regular season. You could have had them at home. You could have knocked Notre Dame off in your place to where now you host a playoff game. But instead, you went this route over here and chose not to play them. So a consolation prize is you get to go to Notre Dame. Good job, fellas. But I still would rather have Bama. I would still rather have an SEC team have to come up north because they haven't really done that yet.
Sure.
I mean, you had Tennessee play Ohio State. The Tennessee's like the most northern of all the SEC teams. Like they get cold. It wasn't much colder in Ohio than it was Tennessee the week of the playoff game. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a little bit different. I want to see one of these SEC teams have to go north in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like Alabama had to go out to Oklahoma.
No. So
but I also would like to be the team that puts the final nail in Alabama's coffin as an elite program. Yeah. Whereas USC is not an elite program, and you know my stance on Michigan, so that's an easy sell for me. I could not care less about Michigan.
Yeah, my biggest separator
is I think they're the most likely of the three to be a playoff team this year, to be honest with you.
Agreed. I think out of those three on FanDuel, USC has the high because they don't have like early playoff odds out yet. Mm-hmm. But USC has the best odds Excuse me. I think it goes Bama, USC, then Michigan, and best odds to win the Natty this upcoming season on FanDuel. I'm pretty sure.
Interesting. So USC, then Bama, then Michigan?
Excuse me. Bama, USC, Michigan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Bama, USC, Michigan.
But,
interesting.
Yeah. My rationale for selling Michigan, I'm a big believer, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion. I think rivalries live in the regular season. Like if Michigan and Ohio State played in a hypothetical playoff game in the postseason, I don't think people would coin it as like the game 2.0, because the thing at stake in the regular season is like winning the rivalry game. The thing at stake in the playoffs is winning the playoff game and advancing. Yeah, I think just beating a rival would be the cherry on top. That's how I look at it. That's why I sold them. I want it to be in the regular season.
Good stuff.
Bayside Tiger 6, Aeneas Williams and Jordan Faison lead their position groups in short yardage conversions.
I'll buy that. I'm part of me wants to go to Kedron, but I got to see him healthy. The other part of me leads towards, I think, obviously Jaden Greathouse had a lot of those in 2024, but again, need to see him healthy. Need to see CJ Carr look to him more. CJ Carr threw to him like 7 times in 4 games, only completed 4 of them. So I just got to see that more often. Right now, those are the best bets right now. So I'll buy that.
Yep, agreed. And then there will be a clear number 1 tight end by the end of spring.
I'm going to sell that. I don't think that there will. I think the emergence of James Flanagan this spring is going to make that a much bigger debate and discussion. Much bigger discussion.
Yeah.
I also think here, let's try a little experiment, chat. I want everybody that's listening live right now to give us this answer. Okay? That's listening and able to respond. Who do you think will be the starting tight end by the time we get out of the spring? Right now, who do you think will be the starting tight end? My guess is that we're going to get 3 different guesses. Now, for those who may not know the spring roster, Ian Premer is not part of the team this spring. So he won't be the starting tight end. If he's the starting tight end by the end of spring, something really bad happened. Really bad happened. Because that means there's nobody left. But who do you all think will be the starting tight end? The options obviously are Cooper. Let's go oldest to youngest. We'll go Ty Washington, Cooper Flanagan, Jack Larson, James Flanagan, or Preston Frizzell.
Or Ty Washington.
He was first. I went oldest to youngest. Ty Washington, Cooper Flanagan, James Flanagan, or Jack Larson, James Flanagan, and then Preston Frizzell. So I'm actually surprised so far. Most of the picks have been one guy. And I thought there'd be a little bit more debate on that. Most people are saying Cooper Flanagan. The only person that didn't so far was Father David said someone with the last name Flanagan. Rob Leach and Black Irish are the first 2 people to say James Flanagan. But that's the thing for me. I thought a couple people might say Ty Washington, so my prediction was wrong. I think James Flanagan's emergence this spring will make it to where there's uncertainty about who that number 1 will be in the spring. It could be the vet, it could be the young kid. I think there will be a legitimate conversation by the end of spring on who will be number 1. And it'll be a lot because of how well I think James Flanagan's going to play this spring. That's my prediction.
Yeah, agreed. I'm selling this too. I don't think it's going to be clear cut. And then you could also argue that your highest ceiling guy doesn't even get in until after the spring. You see what kind of emergence he has in the fall. So I'm going to sell
Your 2 highest ceilings will be a true freshman and a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Then a combination of Tion Gray, Jason Onye, or Bryce Young will block 3 field goals.
All 3 of them? Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I would actually throw in maybe Keon Keeley into that because he blocked a punt last year. But, didn't Bryce block a couple as a freshman? I know he blocked at least one.
Yeah, I know didn't he get one against Georgia Tech?
I thought so. I thought he actually had a couple. I could be wrong, but let me go see Bryce. Blocked kicks or punts, 24. He had 3 because he had a blocked punt as well. Didn't he have a blocked punt in the playoffs? No, he didn't get one against Georgia. He had a blocked punt against Miami of Ohio, or blocked field goal, I think, against Miami of Ohio. Blocked. You were right about Georgia Tech, and then he had one against Army. So, and I thought one of those was a punt. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was Miami of Ohio. I forget which one it was, but I thought he blocked the punt. And then let's see what Tion Gray did this season. Did he block any this year? Yeah, he blocked one. He blocked one against James Madison. And then let's go look at old Jason Onye. Let's look at Mr. Onye. He has had, let's go 2024. He blocked one in only 5 games. He had a blocked, was it a blocked field goal against Northern Illinois, correct? I believe it was a blocked field goal. And then he had 2 blocked kicks in 2023, one against Tennessee State and one against Stanford. The one against Stanford, I think, isn't that the one that Javonte Jean-Baptiste ran back for a touchdown?
That is correct.
I think so. So, yeah, I'll go with that. That's a combined 7 blocked kicks the last 3 years between the two of them. I'll go with that.
Yeah. It's a buy for me as well.
I'll say this, Mr. Biaggi. If you don't have a combination of those 3 and Keon Keeley, if you don't have at least 3 of those 4 guys in the field, then we've got a problem on BAT, especially on field goals.
Yeah. From Black Irish 864, a.k.a. our guy Christopher Galloway, the women's overtime victory for the gold medal was more exciting than the men's overtime victory for the men's gold medal.
It's all you, Trev. I didn't watch either game.
No, I mean, they were both electric. Look, man, I'm not going to pick one. They were both, an overtime goal win over Canada, the country that invented hockey, right? So I don't think one was more electric than the other. I watched both. Both were awesome. That's where I'm at. So I guess, Chris, if you got a preference to either one, but I thought both were electric. That was a lot of fun. And I don't even understand hockey, but it was sick.
Saw the highlights of the overtime shot. That was pretty awesome. I'm just glad that that America dominated in both of them. That's great. But I didn't watch any Olympics this year. I heard they were great games. I've also seen that Canadians have not taken it very well.
No,
based on Twitter exchanges.
And
have not handled it very well.
In one of the softest tweets I've ever seen in my life in sports. After the Canadian women's team got silver, they tweeted out something like "silver shines just as bright" or something. And I was like, that is such a loser mentality. Ugh, you and your bacon can go kick rocks. It's ham. Ugh. Buy, sell, hold from Cousin Eddie's mobile home.
So just to premise, this is Notre Dame's yards per game average, attempts per game average, and a yard. By the way, Father David Penny, who is a Canadian, said, that tweet made me want to renounce my citizenship to Canada. That's great. That's awesome, dude. That is great. But this is so this graph, if you're listening via podcast, you can't see it. It basically shows Notre Dame's rushing yards per game last 4 years. It's 189.1, 185.7, 189.8, and the 203.4 from 22 to 25. And it shows attempts per game, which range between 35.2 to 40.9, and then yards per attempt, which was 4.6 in 2022, went up to 5.3 the next year, and then the last 2 years has been 5.7. So the next couple submissions are off of this number. I just obviously couldn't fit it all into one card. So that's the setup to these next couple. There's 2 pages of submissions.
Okay, right on. All right, so buy, sell, hold 2026 will have the lowest yards per game of the Marcus Freeman era due to a greater percentage of pass plays.
I'm going to sell that. I don't think the yards are going to go down. I think you can make a case that this will be their best yards per carry season. Now the running backs won't be better, but I think it will be better because I think you're going to have a more dominant offensive line, and because it would be a more effective pass offense, it's going to mean that there's more preferable boxes to run through. I mean, Trev, you've seen the breakdown videos I've done. I sent you the run game. How many times did we see the offensive line block the 6 in the box and then a safety or somebody from the outside just comes down untouched because they're not at all afraid of the ball being thrown over their head? last couple of years. I mean, that there's going to be less of that, in my opinion, this year, which will mean 5-yard gains turn into 8-yard gains or 10-yard gains. And they're not going to turn from 5 to 50 at a greater degree, but that 5 turns into 7, 8, 9, 10. 50, 60 of those, and all of a sudden your 5.7 yards per carry turns into 6.0 yards per carry, even though you may not be better at running back, but your offensive line is more dominant and teams have to play that more. So and then also if I don't think we're going to see the same home run unit both ways this year. I think some of the 50-yarders that Jadarian and Jeremiah had will be 25-yarders with the current group, which is still very good. So, meaning more plays to run as well. So, no, I think the run game will be every bit as productive as it has been the last couple of years. I am just – it did it again. My TV just randomly turned on. Things possessed, Trev. But that's kind of where I'm going to go on that, is I think it's going to be – they're going to be just as good yards-wise, better yards per attempt wise, even if the attempts don't go up. Plus, I think they're going to get a lot, back to some earlier questions, I think they're going to have a lot of guys. There's going to be a lot of Matty Augustine and Chris Tarrick and Nolan James and Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton on the field in the fourth quarter this year.
Yeah.
And some Grayson, a little bit of Grayson McHugh potentially in 3 or 4 games. We're going to see some Cam Herron in the fourth quarter of games. We're going to see some few games of Tyler Merrill potentially. I mean, Sully, there's going to be a lot of those really talented young players are going to be in the fourth quarter blocking for Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton. And just like last year when Aeneas would pop on a 50-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter, we're going to see that again this year. All of a sudden, your 155-yard game turned into a 205-yard game. Just like that with your backups. And I think we're going to see some of that as well. Because what did Aeneas had? 2 50-plus yard touchdown runs this year and a 30-plus yard touchdown run this year?
Yeah.
On 20-some carries? We're going to see some of that from Javion and Jonas next year as well. No doubt about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, yeah, honestly, you kind of knocked out all 3 of them. I agree with you completely. I mean, the next one was 2026 will have the lowest rushing attempts per game of the Marcus Freeman era due to the greater percentage of pass plays. And I go back to what you said about, look, there's going to be a lot of fourth quarters where there's going to be a lot of quote unquote reserve backs getting a lot of carries. I think it's all going to balance out. Now, you could argue that during the quote unquote meaningful minutes, the balance could sway a little bit more to the passing game. I think you could see something like that. But by and large, over the course of the season, how it's going to average out in a game, I think you're going to break even. I think it'll be somewhere in the middle. And then the last one is 2026 yards per attempt will still be at or above 5.7 yards per attempt. A lot of that onus is going to be on the offensive line, but that I buy.
And that I buy for sure as well. Yep.
And then at least 8 of the 21 defensive linemen on the current roster will eventually be selected in the NFL draft.
8 of the 21. So I'm going to go Boubacar, yes. Bryce, yes. Keon, yes. Rodney Ebenezer, yes. Tion, yes. Francis, yes. Easy. Yeah, easy buy.
Yep.
Yeah, easy
Agreed.
buy. Same with the next one. Easy buy.
Yep. At least 5 of the 11 linebackers on the current roster will eventually be. I mean, you could just talk about the 5 guys in their current rotation.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Agreed.
So, yep, agreed there. And then someone other than CJ on the current roster will have the longest NFL career.
Someone other. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, you could see that. I mean, I'm not buying it because I'm not predicting who's gonna have longest careers, but I will say I could see an Anthony Knapp, I could see a Grayson McHugh, I could see a Will Black, I could see some offensive lineman playing 12, 13, 14 years and having a nice long decade plus long career. Yeah, could see that. Like Zach Martin.
Even guy like if. I know he's had injury problems in college, and we saw him healthy in 25. But, I mean, if a guy like Jordan Faison can start modeling his career after what Tyler Lockett did, some people gave him flack for it, but extended his career, in my opinion, by quite a bit. When he had the opportunity to run out of bounds, he would. He would avoid taking big, unnecessary hits. I could even see being a guy like that, so I agree with you.
Those are good ones. Hold on a second. It's not going. We were doing so well, Trev. There we go. Okay.
Bang. We're back. Back like we never left. From Robert Garzanelli. The offense will increase its explosive plays in the passing game and end the regular season with 65-plus plays of 20 yards or longer.
I'm
looking.
Let me look at that here real quick.
So last season in just 12 games, this is a easy buy. Last season Notre Dame ended in just 12 games with 76 plays from scrimmage of 20 yards or longer.
Let's see here. Passing game. Okay, so you're just talking total plays, then that's an easy buy. I was looking at it from pass game since he said pass game. The pass game is going to be the question for me, Trev. They had 50 this year in 12 games. So of just pass games, pass plays. So if we take that divided by 12, and then we say let's say they play 15 games, that gets them to 63 pass plays. So all plays, no brainer, easy buy. Let's look at it from a pass play standpoint. So they were on pace for 62.5 if they would have played 15 games last year. I think there's going to be even more plays of 20 yards or more in the pass game this year. So I kind of lead toward, because I think there's more guys that can do things after the catch. Will Pauling didn't do a ton after the catch last year unless he was wide open. Faison did, but a lot of his stuff after the catch was from the line of scrimmage. They weren't 20-yard gains. We talked about in the receiver breakdown, I want to see Jordan do more things as a route runner that gets him more separation so he can start doing some things 15 yards down the field that he does, like right after the catch in a punt or, after catching a screen or a quick game. So I actually do think we're going to see more 65 or more. I think they'll be one of the 5 most explosive pass offenses in college football this year. And last year, the 5 most explosive pass offenses in college football had 62, 63, 68, 68, and 75 pass plays of 20 yards or more. I think Notre Dame's going to be in that category, which means as a team, as an entire offense, that's an easy buy. They were more than that this year in the regular season, weren't they? Just total long plays. They were at 76 this year. Yeah. So I'll go pass game wise. So it's an easy buy overall, but Trev, pass game wise, buy, sell, or hold that they'll have 65 or more plays of 20 yards or more in the pass game. I'm going to buy. It'll be close because that puts them in the top 5 in the country.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely be close, but I'm buying in both lenses, I guess you could say. Then if the playoff expands, the lower tier bowl games will eventually die off and it will only be conference championship games and playoffs. I almost think it could be the opposite. I think if the playoffs expand, I think you'll see conference championship games go away, but the bowl games will still be around. I can see that.
Yeah. Lower tier, I actually think I sell this because the whole proposal for 24 teams is that they get rid of conference championship games. And so I think conference championship games are going to eventually go away. Now here's where some of these teams like the Big Ten are hanging on to the automatic bids. Well, if we're going to get rid of a conference championship game, then we need to know we're at least going to be able to make that money up by getting X number of teams in the playoffs. That's one of the things that they're saying. So I think those are eventually going to go away. And I think more and more lower tier bowls are going to go away. Yes. Lower tier bowls. I mean, we've already seen 3 cancel this offseason. Motor City Bowl, I think, is one. The Bahamas Bowl is one. And I think there was one out in LA that also canceled. They're just not going to do it. And they're not even like going to somewhere else. They're out, which is sad to me. It's very, very sad to me that we're seeing this, but I also understand it. It's basic economics.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Another one from Robert, buy, sell, hold. I think the same weekend the conference championship games are played, the rest of the potential field should play each other for play-in games and seeding.
I don't, because that's basically a playoff game. So I'm going to sell that one. I mean, if you're, I hate the phrase playing games. I think they're the dumbest thing ever because, like, look at the NCAA tournament. Don't they call them playing games?
Mm-hmm.
But don't all the teams that are in a quote unquote playing game consider themselves in the NCAA tournament?
I think so.
Yeah, they consider themselves of playing in the NCAA tournament. And so, like, look, we're overthinking this a lot. Play 12 regular season games. Have the weekend after the regular season be Army-Navy all by itself. And then the weekend after that, you start a 16-round playoff. Let's go at it. Let's have some fun. That's to me what it should be.
Yeah.
I would even be okay if you wanted to give them 2 weeks off. Everybody 2 weeks off. I'd be okay with that too. I'm not one of those people who's like, you got to have the season over by January 1st. Why? Well, that's how. No, hold on. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't tell us bowl games don't matter, but yet the day in which the big bowl games played somehow matters to you. Like, you got to pick a lane. So I think the second weekend of January, the season should be over. Semifinal game should be on January 1st, and then you play the championship game basically a week to 10 days later, depending on whatever that Monday is. And I don't care about – I think it's dumb it's played on a Monday night. I think it should be a Saturday night. It's flipping college football, but I understand that that's just not reality. So give me the championship games on January 1st, no matter what day – or semifinal games on January 1st, and then give me the championship game 8, 7, 10 days later. That's where I'm at. So – which means there's probably in some years going to be a little bit of maybe a 10-day gap between the second round and the semifinals. That's fine to me. Because, again, we're talking about mostly teenagers, and I don't think teenagers need to be playing basically 8, 17 games with one bye week in between.
Yeah.
You know, so there's an easy way to do this. It's just about whether or not people are going to want to do it. And somebody says agree, but do see a small problem with students off campus. Guys, that's really doesn't matter anymore. Like, do you really think a playoff team is going to have trouble selling their tickets if their students are no longer on campus? The reality is, for a lot of these state schools that have the big camp, like Notre Dame only has to replace 5,000 tickets, if that. Not every student in Notre Dame gets a ticket, and there's only 8,000 some undergrad students, right? 11 or 12,000 total students, including grad school. But if you look at a lot of those states, like your state schools, they're going to be in the state from somewhere. You know, like I'm looking it up now. Like, what's Ohio's 68 to 71% of Ohio State students are from Ohio. If they want to go to the game, they can go to the game. And a lot of schools will do what Notre Dame did last year. They kept the dorms open for the students, so students could stay.
Well, and
you're moving it up now.
Well, and especially once you start getting out of like basically being a freshman, a lot of students just live off campus anyways. Like, there's a good amount of students that live year round around their campuses, depending on what they got going on. So no, it's not an issue. I'm pretty sure school was out for Notre Dame last year on December 19th when they hosted IU. There's no issue filling the stands. And Notre Dame is a student body that's from all over. I'm willing to bet that the majority of the students at Notre Dame aren't from South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah. Yep. They won't have, like, I get that. I think there's a lot more made of that than people need to make of it. If the schools want students to be there, there are things they can do to have the students be there. If not, then normal non-students can buy tickets, and they're not going to have 15,000 less people at an Alabama home playoff game because the students are gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
From JG Whitetown, buy, sell, hold, Chancey Stuckey set the wide receiver room back 3 years.
No, I don't agree with that. I think injuries have played a bigger role than that. Not in today's era, not with the portal. Mm-mm. No,
I
the
mean,
year after they
there's
fired Chancey Stuckey, Notre Dame played for the title. So no, I mean Chancey Stuckey was terrible, but Chancey Stuckey also has to get credit for recruiting Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison and that group. So no, he set him back, but I don't think he set him back 3 years.
No, I don't either. I mean, I think it's quarterback play a little bit too, like from like their passer's ability. Like I don't think it's. I mean, Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter both talked about CJ Carr in their player interviews. It's one of the things that attracted him to come to South Bend. I think quarterback play just as much, if not more, than Chancey Stuckey is kind of leading into the state of the wide receiver room. And then Notre Dame will have how many shutouts? 0, 2, or 4 or more. I guess we could do buy one, sell one, hold one for these. And my answer for this is pretty easy.
Yeah, I go in the order that was provided. Buy 0, hold 2, sell 4 more. Yeah. When was the last time we talked about this when was the last time Notre Dame had a buyout, a shutout? This year they didn't have any.
22 Boston College senior day, I think.
Okay. So this year they had 3 games where they held opponents to less than 10 points. Boise State, NC State, and Syracuse. In only one of those 3 games did the team score a late garbage touchdown. Correct? Mm-hmm. Even Stanford scored in the first half of that game. So meaning the reason I say that is because if the only points you score are in garbage minutes, that means you were close to a blowout or a shutout, I mean. And if you look at 2024 for Notre Dame, let's see here, 2024, they had 4 games where teams were held to less than 10 points. And in only one of those games, if my memory serves me correctly, did the team score their touchdown in the let me just look this up. I think Purdue is the only game where they scored a second half touchdown or second half points. Miami of Ohio scored in the first half. I'm pretty confident of that. And Stanford scored in the first. Actually, Stanford scored first in that game.
Yep.
And then Florida State scored in the first half of that game as well. So the only time that I remember last year where a team had a garbage points, which means, again, that you were close to blowing them out, was Purdue. 2023, Navy, Tennessee State. I mean, you couldn't even shut out an FCS team. Now, they were dominant that year. Don't get me wrong. But you couldn't even get a shutout against them. It's not easy to have shutouts. It really isn't. And, yeah, it's not. How many did Indiana have this year? They had Indiana State. So they blew out. Like the last 2 years, I think Indiana's had 2 shutouts. They had Purdue last year and then Indiana State this year. They didn't even shut out Western Illinois and Florida International the year before. So it's not easy to get shut out. So I'll go 0. I'll go buy, so hold in the order you provided. And that's why. I would love to be wrong. It'd be fun to watch them just completely blank a team, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fantastic if it happened, but shutouts are so hard. I don't care what quality of team you are. Those are very hard to do. Very hard. If Notre Dame has 2 first-round draft picks this year, they will result in 0 5-stars, 2 5-stars, or 4 or more 5-stars.
I see where you're going with this. I mean, they've already gone 4 or more before this year's even draft. I mean, they signed 5 5-star recruits last year. And I think part of it is obviously putting more guys in the NFL, but the other part of it is playing for the championship. So buy 4 or more. I mean, hold 2 or more and sell 0.
Yeah.
So reverse order.
Definitely selling 0. But I mean, they had 4 or 5 5-star recruits this past season, and they didn't have a first-round draft pick in 2025.
Right.
So,
yeah, I get the premise. If they have 2 first-round picks, and Trev and I were talking about this before, we may talk about this either tomorrow Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to do our midweek rundown, and one of our topics is going to be a combine preview. The next week could be something that jumps 2 Notre Dame players into the first round. We, in the last week, from 2 reputable draft analysts, Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah, we've seen both of them have a second Notre Dame player in the first round. Daniel Jeremiah had Malachi Fields, and then Trevor wrote an article today that had Mel Kiper had Jadarian Price, and he had him at like 28. So it wasn't even, and then Malachi Fields was like at 26. So it wasn't even like number 32. The premise being, well, we'll get into the premise tomorrow. So if that happens on top of what Notre Dame's done on the field, sure, I think it helps with recruiting, but I also don't think it automatically means that the players Notre Dame wants are going to be 5-star guys. Nor do the guys they sign that are going to be 5 stars end up being ranked as 5 stars. I think Julius Jones Jr., for example, is a borderline 5-star player, if not a 5-star player. And he's ranked in the 80s. That's still pretty good, but will he get the jump up like a Joey O'Brien got last year? Joey O'Brien wasn't anywhere close to being a 5-star when Notre Dame first started getting on him. Now, we thought he was elite. We talked about it from the jump that he was a must get in that class. So they're already doing that, and before the first round picks, if they have 2 to 3 offensive players going first round this year, I think that has an impact for sure. Because it's already started. They're not going from 0 to 4; they're going from 5 to just keep doing what you're doing,
right?
Kind of thing. So yeah. I'll go in that order, Trev.
From Eye on the Ball, Jadarian Price could end up being a better NFL running back than Jeremiah Love.
It's possible. Could. I'll buy that he could. I like the way you phrase this, because you're not saying it he will. I would not predict that he will, because that could be tough. But he could, yes. There's a couple things that factor into this. Number one is there's a chance Jeremiah Love gets picked by a team that's not very good. Now, if he gets picked by the Chiefs at 9, that's like best case scenario for Jeremiah Love, because you're going to an established team that had a down year. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a dream scenario, Trev, for him, as opposed to like going to the Jets or, a team that's perennially picking in the top 5. You're going to get drafted by a team that's just had a down year. Wasn't that the case when Pat Mahomes got? No, they traded up to get him. There was a year recently where a team that's normally really good had a bad year. They picked in the top 10, got a stud, and then they went back to being good again. And I cannot for the life of me remember who it was. But so much of this is, who do you get picked by? If you're a quarterback and you get drafted by Andy Reid at 15, I have a lot more faith in you being successful than if you're a quarterback that gets drafted by the Browns at number 1, or the Jets at number 1, or the Raiders at number 1. Just because of the history, the recent decade-plus history of those teams, just not able to produce quarterbacks under different ownership, leadership, coaching, GM, all of it. And so Chiefs will be great for Jeremiah. Saints, we'll see. But the cool thing with Jadarian is if he goes late first round, is going to a really good team.
Yeah.
He's going to the Broncos, the Bills, the Texans, like somebody that's already pretty good. And he's meant to be the final piece. So I could see a world in which Jadarian ends up being better than Jeremiah. Injuries could factor into that as well. And if they're both healthy, I could see that. It just, what if Jeremiah gets picked by a team that doesn't have a system that fits what he wants to do or what he's great at, or they don't have a very good offensive line, there's a lot of things that could happen, not even counting an injury, where Jadarian ends up being better. Jadarian goes and plays for a team who's got a great offensive line. There's a lot of things that could factor into that. So it could happen. Yeah, I'll buy that it could happen. And Jadarian's also, here's the final piece, he's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll buy it as a possibility. I have mixed feelings about Jeremiah Love going to the Chiefs, because I don't love how Andy Reid uses his running backs. I don't. There's no rhyme or reason as to what the rotation is. Now, the flip side, the counter to my argument, is Jeremiah Love, I think, is better than any running back that they have on their roster, between Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt and all those guys. But again, talking about system, I don't love how Andy Reid uses running backs. And I honestly, historically, I haven't loved how Andy Reid has used his running backs at the Chiefs, even before he had Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. So we'll see what gives. Does he open the door to Jeremiah Love to be more of that primary guy or what? But, we'll see. I think he's going to be a dude no matter who he goes to. But there's definitely better fits than others out there, that's for sure.
And that's the big key, Trev. It's about the fits, and that's very important. And for a lot of players, and we've talked about this before, it's a very important aspect of it. I've always just wondered with Andy Reid, like, does he do what he does because he just doesn't have those guys? Or is that just kind of who he is? That's something I've always wondered, because like what you had, like he inherited the Chiefs. When he inherited the Chiefs, they had Jamal Charles, who had some very good seasons. In his first year, Jamal Charles had 1,200 yards, almost 1,300, 12 touchdowns. He played less the next year, and then injuries just kind of derailed, the rest of his career. And then we haven't really seen the Chiefs, from what I can remember. I'm kind of looking through their seasons now. They haven't really had that kind of back since then. They just haven't had a big time back that they could, in their mind, I think, build around. You had Charcandrick West, Spencer Ware. You've talked about some of the guys. Remember, Damian Williams had that really big playoff game. Then they had Kareem Hunt in 2017, and he has a 1,300-plus yard season. And then obviously Kareem Hunt has, all the issues that he has with injuries and other off-the-field things, and then he never quite lives up to that. And then it's Damian Williams and aging LaShawn McCoy. So I've always wondered that about Andy Reid, because there's years where, Trevor, I'm 100% agree with you. This is when I watch, I'm like, what is he doing with his backs? Like, they're just like, it's like dial-a-back every week. But then he gets a Kareem Hunt, and it's like, that's our dude. He gets a Jamal Charles, and that's our dude. And yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting, because I have a lot of same questions you have. And it's been a minute since they had a Kareem Hunt or a Jamal Charles.
Yeah. No, agree.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, and they didn't draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be the lead back. They drafted him to be a pass blocker and pass catcher. That's what they drafted him to do, which was still weird to draft a guy in the first round to do that. But, when you're the champs, you're like, well, what else do we need?
Right.
Fair. Fair point. Fair point.
Sticking along kind of the NFL draft Jeremiah Love train, he will be running the 40-yard dash at the combine. So do you buy, sell, or hold that his time will be below a 4.4?
What are your thoughts on this, Trev? I don't know that I think he'll be sub 4.4. I would love to see it, but I've always envisioned Jeremiah Love as being like a 4.42 kind of guy. I have to think that part of the reason he's running, if he does run, because the latest report, was it from Tom Pelissaro? Is that who had that report, Trev? Is that who it was? Said that he's definitely going to work out, like in drills, and that he might run the 40, is what I believe that report said. If he runs, I have to think it's because he's putting up really good times during training. I have to think that's it, because what else does he have to prove? But let's be honest, if you go out there and run a 4.38 with all the other stuff on his resume, now he's saying, hey, I want to get past this ceiling of 8.9 that everybody has for me. I want to get in the top 5. How do you get in the top 5? Go run a 4.3 something. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like, so I have to think, I never thought he'd run a sub 4.4 until he decided he was going to run. And then I was like, that's interesting. Like, now the other counter is like, but if he doesn't get picked 8.9, there's a chance that he falls, because there's just the next bunch of teams don't have running back. So he's trying to be so good that he makes sure that even if he doesn't pick by one of those two teams, there's somebody trades up to get him. There's a lot of different ways you could spin that. And the answer is, I don't know which one that is, but I think he'll run low 4.4s would be my pick. But I don't put anything in past Jeremiah.
Yeah, I buy that he could, since it was worded that he he will run below a 4.4. I mean, maybe. But yeah, I have mixed emotions about him competing, because I just historically, I don't know if you're going to see a running back go higher than that. I mean, Bijan was taken like 8th, Jahmyr Gibbs was taken like 11th or 12th, and they ran below 4.4, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, Jahmyr wasn't nearly as good in college as Jeremiah was, but Bijan was. Bijan was a dude in college, to your point. Like, I'm back in everywhere. Well, Ashton Jenney went 6th last year. So, like, there's at least that. You're correct. Bijan went 8. And then where did Jahmyr get picked?
Like
he
12 or something.
Yeah, he was same year as Bijan. Yeah, 12. So you are correct. But at least 2 of the last 3 years, we've seen a back go in the top 8.
Yeah.
But does Jeremiah have – I mean, I think Jeremiah Love's a better NFL running back than Ashton Jenney. That's just my opinion. But a lot of it's about need, Trev, too. I mean, a lot of people thought the Raiders overdrafted to take Ashton Jenney at 6 last year. So we'll see. Be nice, wouldn't it? Here's the thing. It's about how far do you let the best player in the draft, arguably the best player in the draft, fall. That's really the debate for NFL teams, because I think I've yet to see anyone put out a ranking of players and he's anywhere lower than 3rd. I've seen him 1st. I've seen him 2nd. I've seen him 3rd. I think the consensus of people who have a clue of what they're talking about is he's a top 3 player in the draft. How far do you let that guy fall before you say he's just too – no, we don't have a need there, but he's way better than what we have, and we just can't pass on the best player in the draft. That's what always makes guys like him interesting. Guys like Quentin Nelson, guys like Kyle Hamilton, who were – and that's just Notre Dame. There's been other guys. But, like, this guy doesn't play one of the big 3 from a value standpoint. What's the big 3? Quarterback, DN, left tackle. Like, we've talked about this, Trev. You and I have had this conversation in past shows. When you look at the draft and you look at let me go, let's see here. Pick in round. So let's go the first pick in the NFL draft for the last, let's go back to 1990. And let's go back to 2000. That's more modern. Here's the positions of the number 1 pick in the draft. Quarterback, D end, quarterback, D end, quarterback, D end, offensive tackle, quarterback, offensive tackle, quarterback, D end, quarterback, D end. The last time one of those 3 positions was not taken number 1 overall was 1996, Keyshawn Johnson. The last running back to go number 1 overall was 1995. With Kajana Carter. The last time, the previous time before that was Bo Jackson in 1986. So even if you think he's the best player in the draft, he ain't going number 1. Like, even if the number 1 ranked team, their biggest need is running back, you're trading out to somebody who needs a quarterback or a left tackle or a T end. That's just the reality of it. And to Trev's point, like, you don't see running backs get taken in the top 5 very often at all. And, to his point, Ashton Jenney at number 6 was the highest a running back has been taken. I'm going to go find the last time a running back went in the top 5. You'd have to go back to Saquon Barkley back in 2018. That's the last time. And then Leonard Fournette was number 4. We're getting close to a decade since that's happened. Is Jeremiah Love good enough to be that kind of guy? Maybe if he goes and runs a 4.35 at the combine, he could be at 6 foot, 200 pounds, and with the production he's had, and he's got that all around game. So who knows? And I think the other thing too we've seen, Trev, in recent years is running backs have impacted championships in recent years in ways that we hadn't seen in a minute. When you look at what Saquon did 2 years ago with the Eagles, I think that's a fair point as well.
Well, and the benefit to a lot of these teams ranked ahead is like you could make a case outside of the Raiders and Ashton Jenney. You could argue that all of them need a running back. I mean, the Jets still have Breece Hall. He's been very hit or miss. The Cardinals, I don't know what happens with Trey Benson. The Titans have like Tyjae Spear and Tony Pollard. No. The Giants just drafted Cam Skattebo. He was very okay before he got hurt. And then I think their other backs are Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. Mm-hmm. The Browns have Quinshon Judkins. They have the 6th overall pick, but he tore up his knee at the very end of the regular season. Commanders probably don't need one. Saints do, and then you have the Chiefs and the Bengals. So I could see a scenario where that happens, but yeah, I'm just not sure.
Because here's like you look at the last 2 Super Bowl champs. This year, Kenneth Walker rushes for 100 yards in round 1, 100 yards and 3 touchdowns in round 1. He has 62 yards and a touchdown in round 2 and a win, and then he wins the MVP of the Super Bowl, rushes for over 130 yards, right? Then you go see Saquon Barkley last year. He only has 57 yards in the Super Bowl. Part of that was because the Chiefs were so focused on stopping him that I think it opened up other things. But he had 119 in round 1, 205 in round 2, 118 in round 3, and had 5 touchdowns in the leading in the Super Bowl. The NFL, that's a lot of things they do. Like, look, you have a great running back. You can win a Super Bowl with him driving that bus to a degree. I just think this is the perfect time for a guy like Jeremiah to come in. And I also think the thing that helps him is it's a weak quarterback class. Very weak quarterback class. You'll have Mendoza probably go number 1. I don't know that you're going to have another quarterback taken for a bit. I'll be shocked if somebody's stupid enough to take Ty Simpson in the top 10 to 15. Even the NFL can't be that stupid. Like, seriously, can they, Trev? I guess maybe they could. They did draft Christian Ponder in the first round. And
I mean, they definitely can be. I watched Mitch Trubisky go before Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. I watched Kenny Pickett become a first-round NFL draft pick.
But that year, though, he was the first quarterback taken.
He was. I mean, at least he was the
20s,
first one.
Right.
But the NFL will
20s.
Yeah, they can absolutely be
Zach
that
Wilson, number 2. I thought that was dumb even at the time. Trey Lance was always a risky pick because he hadn't played. That 1 year at North Dakota State was his only year as a starter. And we talked about this then. They didn't even use him to lead the team. It just they suck at drafting quarterbacks. But this is a in my opinion, a historically bad quarterback class. Could that be something that boosts up Jeremiah? Maybe. I don't know. So there's just a lot of questions about it. But moral of the story, him running a sub 4.4, even like a 4.41, I think cements him as one of the elite players in this draft class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can that be enough to vault him up past that 8-9 seed? Because right now I've yet to see a mock draft that has him higher than 8 to the Saints. It's every mock draft we've seen is 8 or 9 to the Saints or Chiefs, with a couple outliers that had him 11 or 12. I haven't seen a single one that has him above 8. Have you, Trev? I know you look at that stuff more than I do. Nope. Have you seen him higher than 8 on any of them? Same here. Nope. Maybe that's something that could vault him up. I don't know. Of course, there's a risk that if you run a 4.48, it's like, so we'll see. I'm more curious to see what Jadarian runs and Malachi run. We'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Well, here we go. Malachi, excuse me. Sorry. I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
I was like, for what? I was like,
for Trev, fourth quarter, baby. Yeah.
I get what you're saying now. I get you. Getting into part 4 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got the buy-sell hold going on today, and Eye on the Ball is keeping us rolling here. Malachi Fields will go in the early second round, if not earlier.
A buy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's starting. It's kind of like what you said earlier, Trev. I mean, he's starting to already get first-round buzz. So, yeah, I'll be shocked if he doesn't go early to middle second round. Shocked if he falls below that. But again, all of this is going to be, if he goes out and runs a 4.63 at the combine, that could change some things. So that's why we're not doing too much on mock drafts and where they're going to get picked until the combine. And we'll explain why all that is tomorrow. But yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I will too. If there's something that there are some NFL organizations out there that will just blindly draft on measurables. I mean, honestly, there's going to be a team that just sees 6'4", 223 and will take a flyer on them. I could see it. And then, unfortunately, the injury with subsequent re-op will limit Charles Jagusah to the later games in 2026.
I'm going to sell that because I feel like if he plays again, he'll be ready by fall camp. If he's not ready by fall camp, I don't know that he's going to play for Notre Dame. So I'm going to sell that because I think it'll be one or the other. But yeah, I'm more concerned about Jagasol now than I was 4 or 5 months ago. So that's why we're at this point now where it's like, if he's good to go, great. Great, we'll see him. If not, then let's roll. It's unfortunate, but that's football, sadly.
Especially when you recruit the talent like Notre Dame does.
Yeah.
You can't afford to be going into academically your senior year and never have played a regular season game with the level of talent they bring in.
Trev, let's say hypothetically that Charles isn't ready to go till Game 7, along with eye on the ball's submission. If Notre Dame's offensive line is cruising at that point in time, who are you benching? You're going to sit Sullivan Absher, who now has 10, 11 starts under his belt and is playing well. Are you going to sit Kirby Lambert? No. You can sit Anthony Knapp? No. You're going to sit Will Black? No. He's not playing center. So I think it would be at that point in time, if it's later in the year, it's basically going to be he steps in when somebody gets hurt. It's a little different situation than it was a couple years ago when he stepped in later in the year, Trev, because at that point in time, he had kind of earned the starting left tackle job by how he played at the end of the previous season and in the spring. Now you're talking about a guy that you haven't really seen play since the spring. And you didn't see play the entire season last year, nor did he practice most of the entire season last year. I just think it's a different situation. And instead of replacing a Rocco Spindler or a Pat Coogan or a true freshman Anthony Knapp, you're now talking about replacing a redshirt freshman Will Black, a redshirt sophomore Kirby Lambert, a junior Anthony Knapp, a senior redshirt junior Sullivan Absher, or a fifth-year senior Ashton Craig. It's a higher level of talent, and it's more experienced talent in certain situations than it was 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, and it doesn't even carry a similar weight to what it did going into 2025, because at least in 25, you could have said, well, he was supposed to be the right guard until he got hurt. Now it's like you would shake up an offensive line unit that's been gelling for 6 to 7 games because he played really well against Ohio State 2 years ago at left tackle.
Right.
It just doesn't carry the same amount of weight.
Right. And if he's not ready to play until Game 6 or 7 later in the year, that means he missed fall camp and a good chunk of the early part of the season. And if one of those 5 is struggling, then I go back to say, why isn't the offensive line coach doing a better job of getting more out of his players?
Agreed.
So hopefully he's good to go this summer and do more. We'll see, though.
From Team OD, buy, sell, hold. CJ Carr doesn't lose another game as a starting quarterback at Notre Dame.
I'm buying that, baby.
Love it.
I'm all in on the 15-0 train this year, Trev. All in on the 15-0 train. So I'm going. It's February. I'm going full homer in February. I'll be a little bit more skeptical as we get closer to the season, but right now in February, when it comes to their record prediction, they're not. But in all seriousness, I'm joking. But when we make our prediction for the season, we'll get more into they got to prove that they don't do this, that, and the other thing. I get all that. But the way I look at it is there's just no one on their schedule that has close to their talent level outside of Miami, and that game's played at home. So, yeah, and 15, Tom, because I predict them to get a bye. And if they get a bye, they can only play 15 games. Unless it's like, okay, the college champ plays the NFL champ or something like that, which would be, terrible to watch because the college team would get destroyed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if they go 15-0 this year, I just don't see a world in which CJ Carr comes back in 2027. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong. I just don't see it.
I don't either. So I'm buying this one as well. And then defensive or special teams, anytime touchdown will be a consistent great bet this season.
That's you.
I mean, sell. I mean, how much capital do you have to work with? I mean, they scored what? How many defensive touchdowns did they score this year?
It was like 5, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. You had 3 interception returns for touchdowns, and you had Yeah, you had 3 interception returns for touchdowns this year. You had 3. I thought there was 2 more. Oh, no, they had the pick 6 from Madon. And then the year before, they had 5 pick sixes. So in the last 2 years, they've averaged 4 pick sixes per year. And then they also had a fumble return for a touchdown in 2024. That was against Navy. Or if you remember the one where Jalen Sneed, was it Jalen Sneed that knocked the ball loose and Junior recovered it, or the other way around?
Other way around.
Junior knocked it out and Jalen recovered it. Okay. So that's 6. So they've had 9 the last 2 years. So, I mean, how many times did you have to win that to make money off of it, Trev?
I mean, it depends on how much.
I don't understand what the odds are.
Yeah, I mean, the odds for a defensive or any like defensive special teams anytime touchdown, it's like plus 2,000 odds every single week because it's just it's unlikely to happen. So, I mean, if you're telling me that it's happened 9 times in the last, what would that be? 16 plus 12 in the last 28 games. I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, throw $5 on it every single game, and if you just hit once, you'll be fine. So, I mean,
so yeah, I'm asking questions for education purposes. If I bet $100 on something and it's got plus 2,000 odds and it happens, what do I win?
And you bet how much? 10, you said, or 100?
$100.
You'd win $2,000.
Okay, so basically, if I bet $100 every game, I would just have to hit once to make money. If the odds were something like 2,000 to 1 or 2,000 odds, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. So
I get that.
I mean, you could, but
I'm making money, but I'm not like paying my mortgage. I'm not buying a new house because of I hit it. Gotcha.
No. So
gotcha.
Well, so I'm selling that it will be a great consistent bet. So
yeah,
I would say,
I'd say play it in week 1. If it hits, play 1,000 in week 1. If it hits, you take your 2 million.
Yeah,
just call it a day.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty awesome.
For a while, it was crazy. Like FanDuel's odds for like Jeremiah Love anytime touchdowns like quickly became not favorable to bet on. Like for him for an anytime touchdown was like minus 670 at one point in the season. But for a while, Jadarian, the favorable lines this past, it was like Jadarian over like Jadarian for an anytime touchdown was like minus 150 for quite a while. And then Malachi Fields' line was always set around like 40 receiving yards for quite some time. Those are great consistent bets. Something at plus 2,000 odds is not a great consistent bet.
Wouldn't it be a thing where once you hit it, you stop betting it at something like that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. I mean, to a degree, sure. Like, I guess, what do you like? You personally, are you asking, or like?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you're doing $100 a game, or $10 on it, right? The odds of it hitting more than once or twice are not great. So, like, if you hit it in week 3, it's like, dude, take your couple $100 and stop betting it. It's just cake. Like this out when I used to when I'd go to Vegas or the one time where I'd go to Atlantic City. Like the way I would play is I would always put a decent amount on 7 and then kind of just spread around the board because the whole goal for me wasn't to win money. It was to have fun, and we're going to be there for a few hours. So let's have some fun. I want to play as long as I can. So if I hit on 7, I'd take $100 chip and I'd put it in my pocket. I'm like, well, I'm taking this home. You know what I mean? Like, I know at least I'm walking home with $100. I don't know. I've always thought it interesting when people hit big on a bet and then they keep betting it. Like, well, like I almost threw up one time. I had a guy, I was on a hot table. Like I went from at $100 to I left with $1,200 because I hit like red 7, like 3 out of 4 rolls. And my uncle was like, dude, keep playing. You got a hot table. I was like, dude, that's why you don't ever win money in Atlantic City. You know what I mean? Like I'm 21 years old. I just won $1,000 in 2 minutes. I am done. I am going home and I am out. Like you are nuts. But some guy walked up and literally was putting stacks of $50 chips on one number. Lost 5 in a row. I'm like, dude, how much money did he lose on like 4 or 5? I'm like, that is gross. I wanted to throw up. Like, I'm sweating putting $10, $15 on the table You know what I mean? And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, that is not fun to me. That does not sound like fun to me at all. Ugh, crazy. Crazy.
Most addictions don't sound like fun to most people.
Seriously, man.
I mean,
that's wild.
That's how you get it.
That is wild. Oh, yeah. I hit that 3 out of 4 or 5. It was like 4 or 5 rolls. I hit that and I was like, no, I am not going to keep playing. I am done. You are out of your mind. Hot table. This is why this place is so nice and fancy and gives you free drinks, because idiots like you keep playing on the hot table. Like, brother, no, man, I'm out.
From 13 Reasons Why, Buy, Sell, Hold. In the Marcus Freeman era, Notre Dame's preseason rankings versus after 2 games. So in 2022, they were preseason 5th after 2 games, not ranked. In 2023, they were preseason ranked 13th. After 2 games, they were 10th. In 2024, they were preseason 7th. After 2 games, they were 18th. Then in 2025, preseason number 6. After 2 games, they were 24th. So with that in mind, buy, sell, hold in 2026. After 2 games, Notre Dame will be ranked in the top 5.
Buy. Easy buy.
Easy buy, and it's they should. Like, they better be. I mean, you could make the case that, I mean, really outside of 2022, they should have been, there's an argument to be made there. 23 is a little tough because you started against Navy and Tennessee State. They should have still been in the top 5 after they beat A&M, they vaulted up to 5th. And then they lost to Northern Illinois. So after 2 games in 2024, they still should have been. Notre Dame was what? Preseason numbers. What did that last chart say? They were preseason 6th. I mean, they had opportunities to beat both Miami and A&M. So you could argue in the last 2 years, they should have been in the top 5. If you're a preseason top 5 team, which I presume them to be this year, and you can't beat one of Rice or Wisconsin, I'm no longer talking about what statues are being built or who's getting a bye.
Yes.
Like, they better be.
Because the whole Northern Illinois game, I still will say it was the perfect storm. You just went on the road, beat a really good team. You were still a flawed team who had a lot of guys learning new things. Your quarterback gets hurt on the first drive of the game, in which you go right down the field and score a touchdown. And they were a very old veteran team that had the kryptonite for your defense because they could just ball control you to death. For a defense that didn't really put a lot of emphasis on stopping the run. So, yeah. But you don't have that with Wisconsin or Rice. They're not coming off of the big opener against Miami or the big opener against A&M or Ohio State like Marshall was. It's a different deal. You don't beat those 2 teams. That's a way bigger problem. If you don't beat both of those teams by double digits, I have some concerns about this team after a couple weeks.
Yeah. 100%.
That's part of the reason I'm so optimistic about this team, though, Trevor, is because you are a team. Like, one thing that Marcus Freeman has proven in the last 2 years is they are not easy to beat in October, November, and December. I mean, they've lost a grand total of 0 games the last 2 years in October, November, December. In the last 3 years, they've only lost, or in Marcus Freeman's entire tenure, they've only lost, 2 games in December and November? Right? I mean, you lost to USC in 2022. You lost to Clemson in 2023. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't lost a game since then in November or December. And if you look at November, December, January, they've only lost 3 games, and one of those was in the national title.
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman beat a ranked team in a bowl game in his first year. They beat an unranked team in his bowl game the second year. They beat 3 top 10 teams in the postseason his third year, and then in his 4th year, they didn't play in the postseason. So, yeah, if you're going to beat Notre Dame, since 2013, the later in the season you play Notre Dame, the 2023, the lower the chance you have to beat them. If you look at the last 3 years.
Yeah. It's just figuring out how to get through that first window of the season. If you can get through September unscathed, the odds of them going undefeated absolutely skyrocket. From Red Salmon's Ghost, buy, sell, hold. Two-parter. Part one, Notre Dame will beat Miami and BYU this year, but will have one letdown week again and have one loss to one of the other teams on the schedule.
So the letdown and the one loss to another team, is that the same thing? Or is he saying you're gonna have a letdown week and have one loss to one of the other teams?
One in the same.
It's one thing,
One in the
right?
same.
Okay. My homer take in February, because I'm giving you homer win-loss takes in February, is no, sell, they won't. But if we're being practical about it, Marcus Freeman has yet to show he can go undefeated in the regular season. Now, I could say I actually am confident in saying that they'll beat Miami or BYU. The part that I'm nervous about is, will you have a letdown game? If you go out and beat Miami this year, don't they play Navy the next week? Let me pull up their schedule. It's Navy the week after Miami, isn't it? Isn't it, Trev? Say Notre Dame.
I don't remember if it's Navy before and then Miami, or if it's Miami then Navy.
You could be right. You could be right. Let me just look up their schedule. It's Navy then Miami. So yeah, I mean, you're playing Miami and Massachusetts and Navy in Massachusetts. Is that a letdown game? Looking ahead to Miami. You beat Miami, you're 9-0, you're feeling really good about yourselves. You beat Boston College, and then you have a letdown game at home against SMU. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, Michigan State at home and North Carolina on the road are not worse teams than what Stanford was in 2022. But my argument has always been, I understand them. We can always talk about the Marshall and Stanford games. I get all that. But this is a very different team from a talent standpoint. Yeah, but they lost to Northern Illinois. I get, but a lot's happened since then. They've played teams like Northern Illinois since then, and they crushed them all. Their only losses since then are to the champions, the national runners-up, and to another playoff team by a combined total of 15 points. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point in time, the concern is this. It's not that anymore. I'm not worried about a loss to a Stanford anymore. I'm not worried about a loss to a Marshall anymore. I'm not even necessarily worried about a loss to a Northern Illinois anymore. But, okay, now I need to still see it, though, right? Like, okay, you beat Miami and BYU, but can you also beat SMU? Like, that's a fair question. But homer take, yeah, sell this. Being realistic, Marcus Freeman's got to prove he can go 12-0. So, and that part I'd have to buy it.
Yeah, he just has to simply, I know there's opportunities for letdown games after some of the bigger games in the latter half of the schedule. You just have to prove to me that you don't lose in September. If they get out of September unscathed, like I said in the last submission, I just don't see them losing down the stretch. I don't.
Unscathed and looking good. Like if they barely skate by Wisconsin, barely skate by Michigan State, and don't look great against Purdue, like, okay, you're undefeated, but there's some problems here. I get your point. Like, we're assuming that if they're unscathed, they're doing what they should do. And in that regard, sure, I do agree with you, Trev. But
and even then, I mean, agreed. And I'll even take it a step further. Like, even if they get through and like they get some ugly games in there, like, I mean, I guess barely skating by multiple opponents in September, I get where you're coming from. But even if they skate by one or two opponents in September, what the track record has also shown us is that the time October hits, they beat people to sleep. Like, I just need to see Marcus Freeman get through September without a loss. Just because I would rather take a skate by win than a loss. I would. Mm-hmm. And so until he shows me, until this Notre Dame program shows me that they can get through September without a loss, and I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Northern Illinois, or I don't care if they randomly get Alabama put on their schedule in September, obviously being hyperbolic. You got to show me that you can be undefeated in September. And then I'll feel really good. But up until that point, I'm going to buy this because nothing has shown me that during this time, anything will be different. And then to follow that up, they'll have a 5 to 8 seed in the playoffs and therefore a home playoff game, and then whip Southern Cal in the super cold weather.
So I buy the 5 to 8 seed part, Trev. If Notre Dame goes 11-1, look, here's my thoughts on the schedule. It's not as soft as people make it out to be. I'm so sick of every time somebody brings up Notre Dame, oh, they play a freaking soft schedule. It's not a soft schedule. It's not a gauntlet either. There's 3 top 20 teams on your schedule. That's not a soft schedule. And so, but it's also not the type of schedule to where if you lose a game, you should be in the top 4 over a conference champion with 1 loss. That's how I feel. A conference champ with 1 loss, and in certain situations, so like let's say Ohio State has 2 losses and wins the Big Ten. They're most likely going to have more top 15 wins than Notre Dame will have. And I could understand, depending on who Notre Dame loses to, I could see a scenario where I would say, I think that 2-loss Ohio State team who just beat Oregon in the Big Ten title game, who was undefeated or had 1 loss, they have a better overall resume than Notre Dame. Notre Dame should be the 5 seed. There's a world in which I could say an 11-1 Notre Dame team won't be a top 4 seed. There's a world where I would say that. So I'll buy that part. I can't buy the Southern Cal part because I just don't think they're a playoff team. I don't. I look at this team and I look at that schedule and I just don't see them being better than 9-3 with a completely remade defensive staff. And I mean, I know Notre Dame has a completely remade defensive staff, but Notre Dame also has a way better defensive roster than does USC.
Well, and a defensive-minded head coach and their coordinator comes back.
That's right. That's right.
I'm with you. From Ballpeen Shillelagh, in the blue gold game this spring, we see more of Hebert and Grubbs than CJ.
I'll buy that. I hope so.
I was just about to say.
And not even just that. The 2 of them combined, I think at least one of them will play more snaps than CJ plays individually, if not both. I want to see about a quarter from CJ Carr, and then it's like, peace out. Go sit down. And then let the young guys play.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Put something on display for the fans to ooh and ah at, and then go enjoy the rest of the day and cheer on your teammates.
Yep.
Then the only reason hockey doesn't require masks that actually protect players' teeth is it would make it more difficult to take the helmets off the fight.
That's funny.
You might be onto something there, Ballpeen.
There you go.
And then Notre Dame takes out all their frustrations from being left out of the playoffs on Wisconsin in the opener, beating them worse than the last time they played in 21. However, unlike last time, this game ends 2 quarters earlier.
I'm going to sell the overall premise of what you're saying. The only part about this that I don't necessarily adapt is the beating them worse than last time. That was 41-13. This is still going to be the first game of the season. There will still be some game 1 mistakes defensively or offensively. I think if they just beat them the same score that they did last time, that's a very dominant week 1 win over a Power 4 team who's improved from last year.
Final score margin, I agree with you, but I don't think it's going to take like multiple pick sixes and a kick return for a touchdown to get to that score.
Right.
Like just like watching the game flow, like I could see it being like just as bad, but it like feels worse because they're just getting
the gameplay will be more dominant than last.
Yeah.
Time. I don't know that the final score will be. That's my thing. Because like Trev, they were losing 13-10 at the beginning of the 4th quarter. No, I agree. We're on the same page. Yeah, I'm clarifying what I'm saying. Like your point is they're going to dominate the game way more than they did last time in gameplay, how the game is played. They won't, like you said, they won't be down 13-10 to start the 4th quarter. And then in the 4th quarter, after going down 13-10, Chris Tyree returns kick for a touchdown, makes it 17-13. Then I think it was Jack Kaiser had the first pick, and then Drew White has the second pick. And next thing you know, Cam Hart had a pick that set up another touchdown. Next thing you know, a 13-10 deficit turns into a 41-13 win. Like, it won't be that. It'll be it could be 38-10 or 41-13 again. Same score, but more dominant. I'm simply saying, and Trev, you're spot on. I agree with that. I'm simply saying I don't know that the score will reflect a more convincing win than 41-13.
Sure.
Just because it is week 1.
The other part that I'm selling, and I'm hope selling, is that they take out all of their frustration in the first game. Marcus Friedman talks all the time about holding on to the pain. I hope that after they beat Wisconsin on a neutral site, they're not like, I feel so much better after last year's playoff snub. All right, we're good now. I hope it's not that. I hope they're mad and pissed off for all 12 regular season games. And then I hope they get mad for the entirety of the playoffs. Like, I hope it sticks with them. I hope they don't air out all their frustrations in game 1. Then Z-Man 381, buy, sell, hold. This is most talented Notre Dame roster, top to bottom, since 1993.
Buy. I think I've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
I think top to bottom, this is their most talented team since Lou Holtz was head coach. I would actually argue this is their most talented team top to bottom since 1992. Because I've said before, I think the 1992 team was more talented than the 1993 team. I mean, the 1992 team was everybody from 1993, but add in Reggie Brooks, Jerome Bettis, Tom Carter. You know what I mean? Like, there were some dudes they didn't have in 93, they had 92. The team in 93 was better. The talent in 92 was more dominant. I mean, it just was. So I'll say yes, it's the most talented roster, top to bottom. Is there some debate if this is their most talented starting lineup? There's some debate there. You know, this team to me has one true, proven, bona fide star. Would you agree with that, Trev?
Yeah.
Leonard Moore, proven. We think there's a lot of guys that can, Boubacar, CJ, there's guys that can be, but like proven star. When I look at the 2015 team, looking back, now I'm not saying where we were preseason, but looking back, we can look and say they had way more than one proven star. And even preseason, they had two proven stars, Will Fuller and CJ and Jalen Smith. And then obviously, you know, Quentin Nelson, Ronnie Stanley, Mike McGlinchey, those guys ended up playing like elite players as well. So, you know, Sheldon Day was an elite player. Like, will any of the D tackles this year be as good as what Sheldon Day was that year? That was a pretty darn good cornerback duo in Kavari Russell. Kavari Russell had something crazy like 31-6 career record as a starting. When he started, they were something like 31-6. And you know, that team was very talented in the starting lineup. Now, depth-wise, not even close to this team. 2018 is a similar situation. As good as I think this D-line is, it has to improve on what it is and what we know to be better than what it was in 2018.
Sure.
I think this linebacker room, as good as it is, still has some room to go before it can definitively say it's better than the duo of starting lineup-wise, the duo of Tavon Coney and Drew Tranquil. You know, like Leonard Moore's better than either one of those guys, but is the duo at cornerback definitively better than what Julian Love and Troy Pride were? Is the safety duo definitively better than what Jalen Elliott and Alohi Gilman were? They all have a chance to be. They have to prove it. Is the receiver room right now better in starting lineup than what Miles Boykin and Chase Claypool were in 2018? Is the running back room better definitively? That's you know what I mean? Like, Trev, that's my thing is like, of what we know about those teams, the starting lineup has some area to prove that it's definitely better than those teams. What makes this team so good is they can throw waves of receivers at you, waves of running backs at you, waves of defensive linemen at you, waves of linebackers at you. And you, like, let's say you were to say, hey, the 2018 starting lineup was better than the 2026 starting lineup. Let's just say that we grant that premise so I can make a point. It'd be barely, right, Trev? Barely. The second team's unit of 18 is not nearly as good as the second team unit of 26. The gap there is far greater in 26's favor than the starting lineup advantage would be in 2018, if you even grant that assumption. And I'm not sure that I do, but I'm just trying to make a point. And I think that's where I like about the question top to bottom from Z-Man is, yes, top to bottom, this team I think is loaded. Now they just have to go out there and prove it and play like a team, not just a bunch of talented individuals. Play like a team. Because I don't know that the 2018 D-line, I don't know that this D-line is better than the 2018 D-line starting. And I don't know that the defensive end rotation, even in the two deep, is better than what 2018 was. I'm very confident, however, that the second and third team defensive tackles in 2026 are better than the second and third team defensive tackles in 2018. I'm very confident that the second and third team linebackers in 2026 will be better than what the second team linebackers were in 2018. And that's the difference. And that's what has me excited about this. One of the many things that has me excited about this team.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot. The depth of talent on this team is outstanding. I mean, it's by far the most talented roster top to bottom of my lifetime. Starting lineups are close, but overall depth of talent, I don't think it's close. Which kind of brings this next one up into consideration here. The second best player on defense this year will be either Boubacar Traore or Tay Johnson, with obviously Leonard Moore kind of leading that charge. What say you on this one?
I buy that it's a possibility. Yes, I buy that. If I had to guess, I'd probably say it'll be one of those two. But I'm okay. What about Francis Brew? What about Bryce Young? What about Drake Bowen? What about Christian Gray? What about a Don Schuler? I can't definitively say, oh, yes, no doubt it'll be one of those two. If I had to guess, though, Trev, I do think it'll be one of those two. When we did our breakdown, our show last week, our breakout to like all-American caliber breakout, the biggest one you had was Boubacar. The biggest one I had was Tay. So it would track. But I just don't feel great about it because as soon as I say, oh, yes, I think of, okay, what about Drake Bowen? What about a Don Schuler? What about Francis Brew? What about Bryce Young? What about, you know what I mean? Like, what about Dallas Golden? What about Christian Gray? What about, when Kingston comes back? What about, Jaden Alsbury? What about Tion Gray? What about Jason Onye? What about Keon? I mean, there's just so many, and this goes back to his first submission. There's so many options that it makes it harder to definitively say, oh, yes, that's going to be the next best guy.
100%. Yeah, I'm with you. It'll most likely be one of these two guys, but it would not shock me if it was any of the other 7, 8. Wouldn't shock me at all. Let's switch gears to the offensive side of the ball. Buy, sell, hold. The second and third best players on offense will both be offensive linemen.
Are we assuming that the best is CJ Carr? Is that the assumption? I don't know that I would make that assumption. I think CJ Carr could be a great player this year, and he's still not their best player on offense. I'm not ready to just give that award to him when I know what Gerby Lambert did as a redshirt freshman. You know what I mean, Trev? Like, would it shock me if Gerby Lambert turned into a first-team All-American this year too? No, it would not. So that's just where my hesitation is. But let's grant the premise that that's number one. There is a world in which the second and third best players in your team this year are Gerby Lambert and Anthony Knapp. There's a world in which that's true. I'm not going to predict it, though, because I think one skilled player is going to break out and be in this conversation. Whether it's Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, one of the new transfers, Aeneas Williams, Keedron Young, a tight end. There's a world in which that's the case. There's also a world in which CJ Carr and an offensive lineman are your 2 and 3, and an offensive lineman is your number 1, right?
Sure.
But yeah, especially if Anthony Knapp moves inside, I'm very excited about what he could be as an interior player. Very, very, very looking forward to seeing that. I think it's possible. I'm really excited to see a couple other skill players and what they're going to do this year. And also, I mean, Joe Rudolph has to prove to me that he can get the most out of the talent on this offensive line. And I'm not of a group of people that believes that he has done that. So I'm going to sell that one, but I don't sell with a lot of conviction. I'll say this: it should be the case. That's what it should. This should be true in 2026. Would you agree with that, Trevor? That this should be true if everyone's yes, if everybody's properly developed, if all the position coaches do great jobs this year, that their second and third best players should be like a Gerby Lambert and an Anthony Knapp, or a Gerby Lambert and a Will Black, you know what I mean? Or a Gerby Lambert and a healthy Charles Jagasaw, or an Anthony Knapp and your 4 most high-level draft picks, in my opinion, after CJ Carr on this team could very well all be offensive linemen. Now, they're in different stages of their development, but just God-given ability, I think you have 4 first-round draft picks. Let me rephrase. I think you have 3 first-round draft pick talents in your projected starting offensive line. That does not include Charles Jagasaw.
Yeah,
because again, he's got to show me he's healthy. I'm going with what Will Black, Anthony Knapp, Ashton Craig, Sullivan Absher, and Gerby Lambert. I think 3 of those guys, to me, I have more faith that one of those 3 will be a first-round draft pick than I do that any of the wide receivers or running backs will be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, and plus we talk a lot about how Notre Dame needs to be a line-driven team. You need this to be the case. You want them. I mean, you could argue, taking quarterback aside, you should argue that the offensive line should be considered the best unit on the field. I mean, that they were in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what you need this year if you want to make any sort of run. So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
As good as Josh Adams was in 2017, I would argue 3 of their 4 best players on offense that year, I would include Josh as one of the 4. 3 of your 4 best players that year were offensive linemen.
Easily.
Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey, and Alex Bars. And I think you're correct. Easily. All right. I think we got a couple more. I don't think that's the last one. Let me look here, Trev. That actually is the last one. Let me see if any popped up while we were on the show. If not, then that will be where we end this show. Trev, give me 1 second. Let me see. Is there any more buy-so-hold questions? There are not. I don't believe. No, actually, hold on. Are there? Nope, there were no more buy-so-hold. Joe Alt super fan had the last ones, and I moved his up to be with. He had put some earlier ones and then some later ones, and so I just moved them all together. So, Trevor Trowbridge, that is it. I survived. I was not sure I was going to be able to survive today with how painful my mouth is, but we made it.
Well, there we go.
Great
well, folks,
show.
that was fun.
Good job today.
Well, folks, be sure to tune into IB Nation Sports Beat. They're going live here in about 15 minutes, talking about a bunch of different topics there. Brian and I are going to be back tomorrow for the midweek rundown. That's going live at 1 p.m. On your way out of here, please be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and family. Anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until tomorrow, that is Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.